This story begins with the fact that it was morning outside. The sun had just peeked out from behind the horizon, the first rays spilling over the crowns of the trees. There was a small wooden hut in the forest, with roosters crowing all around it, waking everything up. In an instant, the door of the small wooden shack creaked open. The main character came out of it. It was a young guy in blue clothes. He stretched sweetly. Apparently, the main character has just woken up. He hasn't even had time to open his eyes yet. Soon, however, the lad was fully awake, his gaze clear and confident. The protagonist smiled. He was in a great mood. The guy was ready to start the day. Leaning against the wall of the hut stood an old Yankaya broom, one of the chickens slowly chewing on it. The protagonist walked over to the broomstick and took it in his hand, about to start working. The guy's name was Yang Kai, and he was a disciple in the Heavenly Tower Pavilion. The guy had started training here 2 years ago, however. He was only able to reach from the 3rd stage of body hardening. In this world, spending 3 years to reach the 3rd stage of body hardening was not considered normal, rather even mediocre. The brother disciples who had entered the pavilion at the same time as Yang Kai had long since passed this stage and were heading towards their future achievements. The guy had no choice, and he started doing all the dirty work in the sect, continuing his training. The Heavenly Pavilion is a sect with a very clearly distinguished feature, which is intense competition between disciples. In the Heavenly Pavilion sect, the strength of its members decides absolutely everything, so you need to train hard. In the Sky Pavilion, the law of the jungle has existed since ancient times. Take away or they will take away from you. If in other sects the foundation is built on friendship and in the relationships of the disciples, it is quite different here. To ascend, a man literally has to climb a ladder of his fellow man. The Heavenly Tower has a rule. Disciples who are under 14, regardless of their background, are sent for 3 years of practice. During these 3 years, everything is paid for by the sect, and the disciples only have to practice. If a disciple can complete the hardening of the body within 3 years, they will be taken to a famous sect, but they can also practice on their own. However, those who fail this test, the hardening of the body will be forced to leave the sect. There was another option. Those who failed the test could become apprentice helpers. The Heaven Tower Pavilion consists of more than 3,000 disciples, while the assistant disciples are few. Comfort was not guaranteed. Even if a disciple missed a straight meal, no one would care. Yang Kai was not going to allow himself to be evicted. Yang Kai thought that they had only lived for a couple decades and their choice had already been made. That is why you need to stick to the path. And to turn around halfway through is ridiculous. At this moment, Yang Kai heard numerous footsteps approaching him. A group of other Heavenly Pavilion disciples approached the guy, and the atmosphere became tense. One of the guys recognized Yang Kai. At first glance, the guy looked pretty friendly. However, at that very second, behind Yang Kai's back, the guys began to whisper, the atmosphere becoming even more tense. The other guys scoffed at Yang Kai. After all, he was an apprentice assistant, and still remained at the 3rd level of body hardening. It's been 5 days since the previous test, and another one is due today. One of the students in that crowd had a surprised and worried expression on his face. He was worried that Yang Kai would be alone against so many people. It seemed unfair to him. The head guy smirked and said that no one was keeping that student here. The student immediately fell silent as this guy's authority seemed to be much higher. Yang Kai put his broom back where he picked it up. The guy didn't seem to care much about what was going on. The guys were watching him. They were pointing their fingers at him and discussing something. A second later, Yang Kai squatted down. He was surrounded by other disciples in a tight circle. The boy sat in lotus pose and began to meditate. He needed to get in the mood for battle. A magical energy appeared around Yang Kai. It surrounded the guy entirely. The other guys didn't understand why Yang Kai was sitting and what he was meditating. They couldn't wait to find out. It seemed to one of the guys that Yang Kai had better stop doing this nonsense and let himself be beaten. He was fully confident that he would beat Yang Kai. The other disciples supported him. He believed that they were all different from Yang Kai, and the sooner this fight was over, the sooner they would return to training. However, Yang Kai didn't listen to the guys. He kept sitting and meditating quietly in the middle of the discussions. The energy from the guy rose higher and higher. It was blue in color and looked like flames. There was a bird sitting in a nearby tree. Even it seemed to be curious about what was going on down there. However, at some point the bird was frightened and jumped up in terror. It chirped loudly. Turns out the bird was frightened by the morning bell ringing, which echoed throughout the neighborhood. At this moment, Yang Kai opened his eyes after meditating for a long time. He was clearly looking forward. The boy knew that when the bell struck 9 times and the sun rose in the east, a new day would dawn. More and more students of the Celestial Pavilion flocked to the venue to watch the fascinating spectacle. Yang Kai stood up from the ground with a calm and peaceful expression and took the broom in his hand. The other disciples were already eager to deal with Yang Kai, rubbing their fists in readiness for battle. One of the guys loudly asked to be picked. He promised Yang Kai that he would be lenient. The other guy pushed him and told him to pick him, because he only needed 1 hit and it would save them both time. In the next instant, it was as if all the disciples had gone crazy. and started fighting for the chance to be the first to fight Yang Kai. Another guy was already furious. He demanded for Yang Kai to choose his opponent. Yang Kai smirked. He was amused by such a strange sight. The next moment, the guy tossed his broom into the air. It quickly spun around. All the disciples of the Heavenly Pavilion looked up in anticipation of the guy's choice. The broom fell to the ground. It kept spinning and wasn't going to stop. After a while, however, the broom all but stopped spinning, its handle pointing at one of the students. This disciple laughed loudly. He was quite a dense statue. The boy was glad he had been chosen. He asked the other students not to be angry that this consideration had not befallen them. The other guys were furious. They were very jealous of that guy and thought he was lucky. According to the traditions of the Heavenly Pavilion, it was necessary to introduce oneself before fighting. Yang Kai did so, and named his body Hardening Stage. Another guy did the exact same thing. His name was Zhou Dingyun. He was an ordinary disciple at the 5th stage of body tempering. In the Heaven Tower Pavilion, the disciples are differentiated by rank. The smallest was the assistant disciple, then ordinary disciple, senior disciple, elite disciple, and core disciple. The core disciple is chosen from among the elite, later becoming one of the leaders of the sect. Zhou Dingyun might be an ordinary disciple, but he still hadn't been accepted into another sect. The guys folded their hands in a welcoming stance and wished each other a good sparring session. The first to decide to attack was Yang Kai. He rushed towards his opponent and swung at him. He started throwing a lot of punches at Zhou Dingyun very quickly. The guy's movements were quite agile. Zhou Dingyun understood that this was a broad strike, a mandatory technique for lower-ranked disciples to learn. Yang Kai's opponent was stronger than him, and was at a higher degree of body hardening than the guy himself. Zhou Dingyun dodged the blow, and with a swift movement, he struck Yang Kai's arm with his elbow. This was followed by Zhou Dingyun hitting Yang Kai's stomach with his knee. This punch was very strong. Yang Kai found it hard to restrain his emotions. His entire body was pierced with pain. Yang Kai's opponent wasn't going to stop there. He swung his fist and was ready to deliver the final blow. However, Yang Kai was not going to give up so easily. He steadied himself on his feet, setting one of his legs aside. Yang Kai managed to dodge Zhou Dingyun's punch, his opponent's fist flying a few centimeters away from the guy's face. Zhou Dingyun was very surprised that his punch didn't reach the target. He stopped for a second. At this moment, Yang Kai wasn't going to wait. He took advantage of the distracted opponent to match the moment. All Zhou Dingyun saw in front of him was Yang Kai's rapidly approaching face. Yang Kai was about to give him a surprise strike stealthily. The guy swung his fist. Zhou Dingyun was very surprised by this turn in their fight. The guy realized that he had been fooled. However, Zhou Dingyun was not going to give up so easily. He quickly took hold of his hands and struck back. The two rivals' fists met in a violent punch, the guy's knuckles colliding. Zhou Dingyun's punch was much stronger. Yang Kai flew far away to the side. Zhou Dingyun's fist was fuming from such a violent collision with his opponent's fist. The guy realized that Yang Kai's punch was faster than his, but his body was weak and frail. His level of development was higher after all. Zhou Dingyun bowed to Yang Kai and thanked him for letting him win. One of the guys in the crowd laughed at Zhou Dingyun, because he really thought that he had won but did not know about Yang Kai's reputation. Zhou Dingyun didn't understand what the guys were talking about. After all, he had used a punch to fight Yang Kai, and following the sect rules, the guy lost. However, Yang Kai got up from the ground and stated that he wanted his opponent to attack again. At this second, Yang Kai shifted and ran to attack his opponent in a flash. Yang Kai used a technique called foot whip. It was a special kicking kick. Zhou Dingyun had not expected such a sharp attack. He realized that this technique could be used in other ways without any problems. Zhou Dingyun wasn't going to lose this time either. He struck Yang Kai's leg with a sharp movement of his hand. Yang Kai flew far away again, dust rising around so that the guy couldn't even be seen. To everyone's surprise, he said he wanted to fight again. It seems the result didn't satisfy him. This went on for a while. Yang Kai was still not going to give up and started running to attack the enemy. One of the guys in the crowd thought that Yang Kai was incredible. He wondered how long he would go up since he would still lose. Zhou Dingyun couldn't believe that he had been challenged to a fight by a madman like Yang Kai. The guy's fight was in full swing. Everyone had already lost count of what kind of attempt it was for Yang Kai to win. The guy had bruises and abrasions all over his face, but he did not give up, desperately shouted and ran into the fight. Zhou Dingyun thought that Yang Kai was completely crazy, because if he didn't give up now, he would cripple himself. However, Yang Kai didn't listen to him at all. The guy ran at his opponent with all his courage and determination and was about to strike. Zhou Dingyun no longer knew what to do to stop him. He was about to defend himself. Zhou Dingyun had never seen someone get up so many times before and run into battle like this. The moment Yang Kai ran closer to the guy slapped him on the back of his neck with one hand. Everything went black in Yang Kai's eyes. The guy stopped for a moment and couldn't move anymore. In the next instant, Yang Kai collapsed to the ground unconsciously flat on the ground. Zhou Dingyun was able to use a technique on his opponent that instantly rendered him unconscious. Meanwhile, Someone was watching the fight from the tree. It was a refined figure in purple robes. This person was recording in a notebook that apprentice assistant Yang Kai had fought against ordinary apprentice Jo Ding-yun, and the latter had won. It turned out to be a beautiful girl with a black mask on her face and her hair in a high ponytail. The Shadow Hall of Heaven Tower Pavilion is a special purpose force that is under the jurisdiction of the Third Elder, and they keep records of everything that happens in the sect. None of the students worry about their accomplishments and points earned. The students of Shadow Hall count and proclaim the results each month. The girl looked down once more to see what was going on down there now. After that, she wrote down the date of what was happening in her notebook. It was the 15th year, and Yang Kai's 147th trial, ending in defeat. The girl looked at the previous record. There were Yang Kai's defeats recorded month after month. The girl thought that being defeated 147 times must be a record number in the history of the Celestial Pavilion. After the girl finished recording, she disappeared from the tree branch in the blink of an eye. Yang Kai had already been demoted to assistant and his welfare was being neglected. It was incomprehensible to her why he was still here. The girl thought that Yang Kai's stupidity might be the reason for this. Yang Kai still lay on the ground for a while, but after he woke up, he found the strength to get up. Yang Kai recalled that it wasn't under the tree that he had passed out. It was unclear to him why he didn't wake up there then. Yang Kai found this strange, and he thought that someone had been kind enough to drag him under the tree. Yang Kai was surprised to realize that this had never happened before. This was something new. Yang Kai stood under the tree for a while longer, contemplating what had happened and his situation. At one moment, Yang Kai felt something strange in his body. He didn't immediately realize what had happened. The boy realized that although he had been dragged, his bleeding wounds had not gone anywhere. He would have to heal them thoroughly. The next moment, the guy was surprised to realize that there was something in his hand. He decided to see what it was. In Yang Kai's hand was a small green vial of medicinal ointment. The guy knew it was an ointment that stimulated blood clotting. The medicine can be purchased for 10 achievement points. Even with a month of dirty work, a guy can't buy himself such an ointment. Yang Kai opened the vial of ointment, smelled the aroma of medicine with enhancing smells of herbs. Even though the guy still wasn't aware of who had helped him, he was definitely going to repay that person in the future. Yang Kai picked up his broom that he had thrown earlier and decided to head back home. The lad did so. He got all beaten up with difficulty reaching his little wooden hut. Yang Kai was going to examine his wounds. For this purpose, the guy took off his upper garments. His entire back was covered with bruises and abrasions that bled. Next to Yang Kai was a small basin of water. The guy took a towel to wash himself. After that, he opened the very vial of healing ointment that the stranger had left him. Yang Kai looked at it carefully. It was bright green in color because of the added herbs. The guy thought about it for a while and decided that he should use it because there was no other option. Yang Kai dipped his finger into the water, thus mixing some ointment and diluting it. After that, Yang Kai applied this mixture to the wounds on his back. The ointment that stimulates blood clotting is good against physical wounds. Diluting it would have a weaker effect, but the guy should have saved it. After Yang Kai had treated all of his wounds, he collapsed onto the haystack without strength. Yang Kai fell into a deep sleep at that second, for he was very tired earlier in the battles. At some point, a purple glow appeared near the guy's head. It was unclear where it was coming from. Yang Kai's sleep was not peaceful. He was clearly dreaming something bad. Sweat appeared on the guy's face. It turns out that this mysterious purple light was coming from the object that Yang Kai was using as a pillow. Yang Kai dreamed of the events that had happened this day. He remembered how he had fought with Jo Ding-yun. This dream was very disturbing to the guy. It was more like a nightmare. Yang Kai was dousing himself with cold sweat. Yang Kai dreamed that he was running at his opponent again, and the latter didn't understand why he didn't give up. However, the dream bore little resemblance to reality. In it, Yang Kai was still able to run to his opponent and swing at him. Jo Ding-yun lost his balance at this moment and fell to the ground. Yang Kai, on the other hand, stood above him and looked victoriously at his opponent. The guy was laughing. Apparently he had no trouble defeating Jo Ding-yun. He believed that soon no one in the entire world would be able to resist him. The sleeping Yang Kai smiled slightly. The corners of his mouth lifted due to such a pleasant dream. At this moment, energy began to surge out from the strange black object that Yang Kai was sleeping on. This energy looked quite ominous. It was black in color and quickly spread across the room. In an instant, this strange energy struck Yang Kai's forehead. A bright flash appeared. From these unusual events, the lad immediately woke up and opened his eyes. Yang Kai abruptly jumped up from his bed, with complete incomprehension of what had happened. The boy continued to sit motionless on the bed for a while longer, pondering what had happened. Yang Kai didn't understand what kind of dream he was having since he was so frightening in it. Yang Kai looked at the sun through the crack in his hut. He realized that he had only slept for a couple of hours. Yang Kai couldn't sleep anymore. He got up from his bed and folded the bedding on it. Something caught the guy's attention. She stopped and stared intently at something. He found the rock he was sleeping on strange. It seemed a little lighter to the lad than before. In the same instant, the stone in Yang Kai's hands rose into the air and began to glow with a purple light. Something very strange began to happen to the stone. It changed its shape. A moment later, the stone turned into a black book. It opened up, but was still in the air. After that, the book's glow stopped, and it fell to the floor without vitality. Yang Kai was shocked from such strange events. He didn't understand what had just happened. The guy's whole body was shaking from the recent fight. He slowly reached out to pick up the book. As soon as Yang Kai touched the black book, it once again glowed with a bright purple light. The boy opened the mysterious book, but to his surprise he found nothing in it. It was empty. Yang Kai flipped through the pages of the book. He found that the book was quite sturdy and well made. The guy found this black stone while he was hunting in the mountains. He never would have thought it would turn out to be a book. Yang Kai didn't understand what good was an empty book with nothing written in it. However, in the same second, surprise appeared on Yang Kai's face. The guy was dumbfounded and didn't understand what had happened. On one page of the book appeared an inscription. With a suitable vessel, a golden body will descend. It is not a miracle, but a golden immortal. Yang Kai was still puzzled and abruptly slammed the book shut. He didn't know what to do with it. The guy thought those words had an intimidating aura, so he did so. Yang Kai poured cold sweat. He decided to think about what to do next. At his own risk, Yang Kai still decided to take another look at those mysterious words in the book. The first time Yang Kai didn't finish reading the message in the black book, it still said something about a majestic golden body. And at the very end was the inscription, "May the indomitable spirit descend." Yang Kai didn't understand what it meant. He thought it was strange that the stone suddenly appeared to be a book. Perhaps it was related to his last dream. Yang Kai kept thinking about the words, "with a suitable vessel with a golden body descending." He decided to try something. The guy bit his finger so there was blood there and dripped a drop of it onto the page of the book. At the same moment, something strange began to happen to the page of the black book. A blue glow appeared. After that, the book swirled, as if into a maelstrom of terrifying energy. And after that, the entire room was illuminated by a golden glow that came straight from the black book. Yang Kai realized that this golden glow had something to do with the phrase that with the right vessel, a golden body would descend. At the same moment, a skeleton appeared from the book. It was slightly smaller than Yang Kai and was floating in the air. The book seemed to be slowly coming to normal, the maelstrom of dark energy all diminished. Yang Kai completely didn't understand what was going on. He was in shock because of such an unexpected appearance of a skeleton. The skeleton had a scary look on his face. The guy even thought he was mocking him. Yang Kai stretched his hand forward and was about to teach the skeleton a lesson. He felt that he should know his place. Yang Kai touched the skeleton's skull. It was as if its body had ceased to be material and shone with a golden color again. In that same second, the skeleton seemed to fly through the guy's arm and headed towards his body. A golden swirl of energy appeared near Yang Kai's chest. It looked like the skeleton spirit was penetrating the guy's body. Yang Kai felt something strange, an expression of horror frozen on his face. Yang Kai could no longer stand on his feet. He let go of the book from his hands and fell to the ground, feeling pain all over his body. Looks like it was all because of the skeleton's energy. Something strange was starting to happen to Yang Kai's bones. After today's fight, the guy's ribs were broken in several places. However, because the skeleton spirit had possessed him, his bones began to fuse gradually. From Yang Kai's small hut came terrifying screams that could be heard all around. Yang Kai thought that this golden immortal wanted to possess his mind and body. However, Yang Kai wasn't going to let him do that. The guy boldly resisted the skeleton's will. Evening came. Yang Kai lay motionless on the floor of his hut. The guy didn't understand what was even going on or what that book was doing in those woods. Yang Kai had the strength to get up from the floor. The guy was surprised when he did so. Yang Kai realized that his body no longer whined in pain, which was surprising considering his injuries. The guy even felt himself getting stronger. His body seemed sturdier than it was before. Furthermore, Yang Kai's wounds had evaporated. The guy even groped himself to make sure of it. Okay, the guy stays on the third step of body hardening, so no drastic changes. At this moment, Yang Kai remembered something. He looked around in surprise. Yang Kai didn't understand where that mysterious book had gone. He hadn't seen it anywhere. At that moment, the book appeared as if out of thin air. It was just incredible. The book fell lifelessly to the floor. Yang Kai couldn't believe what he was seeing. The guy walked over to the book and picked it up, going to check something out. While in her hands, the book seemed quite ordinary. Nothing gave away its strange nature. However, as soon as Yang Kai thought of making the book disappear, it would vaporize in an instant, and as soon as he wanted the book to appear, it would appear in his hands as if out of nowhere. Yang Kai picked up the book and began to scrutinize it. The guy noticed that it was made of spiritual stone. Such a spirit stone is only created when hundreds of millions of spirits gather in the abyss together, coupled with exorbitant human labor. With such a treasure, not only could Yang Kai easily crush the heavenly pavilion, but also almost any expert in this world. However, the guy realized that he was too weak now. He wondered how he should cherish this book. Yang Kai quickly realized that the practice of becoming stronger was the only way to protect her. Up to this point, he had traveled a lot and seen different things, and now he was going to take up training. Now, since Yang Kai owns this black book, he needs to make the most of it. There are still many more pages in it, which means there's more than one treasure hidden. Yang Kai sat down on the bed and began to scrutinize the contents of the magical black book. The boy looked carefully at the writing on one page to realize what meaning was hidden in what was written. The guy opened the page again, which had the inscription, "Majestic Golden Body, Body Hardening Records." At this moment, Yang Kai felt something pouring into his mind. It was energy coming straight from the book. The guy quickly realized that they were notes on body hardening techniques. Meanwhile, it was already deep evening. The method looked simple, but it is not. To practice it, one must follow strict requirements, practicing only while facing the rising sun in the east. Yang Kai was so engrossed in reading the black book that he didn't notice that night had fallen. He looked out the window. Yang Kai realized that it was too late, and it was time for him to go to bed. The guy yawned sweetly. After that, I lay down on my bed and fell asleep. Too much had happened that day. Yang Kai didn't sleep much at all. He woke up before the sun had even risen. The boy came out of his cabin, thus waking all the roosters in the yard. Yang Kai looked at the horizon. The sun just showed the first ray. It was just the right time. Yang Kai closed his eyes and tuned in. He was going to practice the very technique he had seen in the book earlier. The first thing Yang Kai did was to get into a fighting stance. The guy was very diligent. After that, he stretched out both hands with palms facing forward, just as it was shown in the book. And the next move in this fighting technique was circular arm swings. After that, Yang Kai took a few steps with his feet, taking a slightly different stance. The boy diligently performed all the movements that were shown in the black book. Suddenly, however, the guy felt a sharp pain that was located between his shoulder blades. The next second, that pain shot through the guy's whole body. He couldn't continue his workout anymore. Yang Kai had only made the first 3 movements out of 6. It wasn't even a 1% body hardening technique, but he was already struggling. Realizing this, Yang Kai had managed to pull himself together after all. The guy inhaled and exhaled deeply, thus setting himself up. Yang Kai didn't want to give up so easily. He got back into his fighting stance and was ready to continue training. Yang Kai. Attempting a few punches in front of him, he clenched his fist tightly and punched the air. However, this was no easy task for the guy either, his whole body shaking in tension. Some time had passed. The sun still hadn't risen from behind the horizon, but it was already getting brighter outside. Yang Kai was out of breath and drenched in sweat because of such a hard training session. Yang Kai felt something strange in his hands. He still didn't want to despair and give up early. The boy closed his eyes and tuned in again. He tried to quiet the pain in his bones. Yang Kai again threw a few airstrikes in front of him. He was already doing much better. There were only the sounds of fighting coming from the guy. He was training hard to get stronger. So Yang Kai practiced for half an hour. It was already a clear day outside. The clouds were leisurely floating through the air. Yang Kai could barely stand on his feet, his muscles trembling and not obeying the guy. The boy closed his eyes. He realized he wasn't strong enough yet to accomplish all his goals. At this moment, Yang Kai felt a strange energy within himself. Yang Kai. It seemed that he had advanced to the 4th stage of body hardening. The guy was very surprised at that. He had spent almost 3 years to achieve the 3rd stage of body hardening, and here, it only took half an hour. Yang Kai thought that half an hour to reach the next stage. This technique was too efficient. However, unexpectedly, in the next moment, Yang Kai felt somehow unwell. At the same moment, the guy threw up. He didn't realize what had happened to him, because it had never happened before. Yang Kai threw up a huge puddle of black mass. The guy understood that practicing the body hardening technique promoted the gradual removal of impurities from the body. He had experienced before, but had never encountered such a volume. Even though he had advanced to a new stage, Yang Kai had still not been able to make any real progress in learning the fist hardening technique. The boy was very pleased with himself. He had managed to make some progress in his study. However, it was time to get on with the job of cleaning up the yard. Meanwhile, the purple-clothed girl was all watching the students from up in the tree. At one point, the girl noticed something down below. She was surprised. Down below was Yang Kai, who was leisurely sweeping the area around the buildings. The guy was very focused. He performed his job with all seriousness. Some other guys came up to Yang Kai. They asked how Yang Kai was doing and noticed that he had been sweeping the place for an hour. The girl in the tree thought that Yang Kai was a real weirdo. She yawned. Yang Kai thought about the fact that even though he practiced a special tempering technique every morning, the rest of the day was always free. Yang Kai's musings were interrupted by loud footsteps. He turned around to see who was coming. Another disciple hurriedly stepped straight towards him. A second later, he crashed into Yang Kai. This student fell to the ground from the unexpected collision and became dizzy. Yang Kai was worried about his brother disciple. He asked if he was all right. The guy was fine. However, he didn't understand when it was that Yang Kai had become so strong. Not so long ago he was like an autumn leaf. He couldn't stand up to anyone. That disciple was already in a hurry. He had other things to do. He waved at Yang Kai and ran away. Yang Kai didn't understand where that disciple was in such a hurry. He was curious about it. He replied that he was running to the Hall of Merit. Yang Kai was surprised to realize that today was the 8th day of the month, which was not an easy day. Every 8th day of the month, all student achievement points are summed up, and students are rewarded and possibly promoted. Yang Kai had 10 points in contributions, but he was called for a fight 6 times and lost all 6. From the lad's calculations, it appeared that he would only get 4 points for this month. Yang Kai was a little frustrated, because he could continue sweeping without remembering it. Yang Kai headed to the Hall of Merit to get his well-deserved points for this month. In the Hall of Merit, an elderly man sat at a table, his hair long and gray. The old man didn't pay any attention to Yang Kai at all. The guy thought that he was dreaming of their pavilion's disciples again. The old man's name was Guardian Meng, Yang Kai had called him. Guardian Meng seemed to be dozing off at his official duties. He turned leisurely to the guy who had entered. Guardian Meng recognized Yang Kai. The guy was looking at him with a slightly judgmental face. Yang Kai asked what Keeper Meng was looking at like that. He was really staring at Yang Kai. Guardian Meng asked why Yang Kai didn't arrive here this morning. He stroked his gray beard. The guy irritably replied that he had too much to do in the morning and didn't have time to pass. Guardian Meng replied that he understood everything, but it turned out that he had interrupted his serious thoughts about the mysteries of the universe. Guardian Meng asked if Yang Kai wanted to take what he usually takes. The guy agreed. He had a serious and emotionless expression on his face. Guardian Meng gave Yang Kai 10 pieces of silver. He threw them on the table in front of the guy. Guardian Meng wrote it down in a large notebook with a very intelligent expression on her face. Yang Kai asked how many contribution points he now has available. The old man replied that the guy gets 4 points every month. One of them he spends on 10 silvers, and there are 3 left, and in total he has 12 points. He asked if Yang Kai wanted to buy medicine. The lad refused, for he has only 12 points, and he can't even ask for a single stack of precious herbs. Guardian Meng knew that Yang Kai was trying to save up for the essence tempering pill, but was taking a very long time to collect points for it. Yang Kai wasn't too worried about it. He smirked and said that he would be able to succeed in the end. Guardian Meng realized that with Yang Kai's current growth rate, he would most likely be long gone by now. The boy noticed that not despite this, there was something he didn't fully understand. Guardian Meng wanted Yang Kai to share his reflections with him. Yang Kai asked how come after announcing that the essence tempering pill had appeared, no one had still bought it. The Guardian replied that it was because he was in charge of it himself and few people knew about it. The guy was very surprised that the essence tempering pill was in Meng's keeper's possession. The old man replied that even if he had the pill now, he still should exchange it for contribution points. His word was far from his last. Yang Kai was determined to accumulate enough contribution points to exchange them for her. Guardian Meng wasn't sure about that. He had heard that the guy had been beaten up again recently. Yang Kai was upset when he heard someone point out his failures. The guy turned around and walked away from the hall. Guardian Meng didn't want Yang Kai to leave. He asked him to talk to him some more. The guy didn't understand what else there was to talk about, since the old man was probably glad to be defeated. The old man felt that it would be better for Yang Kai to return home. After all, the Heavenly Pavilion, an unsuitable place for him. The expression on Yang Kai's face immediately turned cold and serious upon hearing those words. The guy replied that he had no place to go back to. Guardian Meng brewed himself a cup of tea and began to reflect on their dialogue with Yang Kai. In reality, the essence tempering pill was in some old man's possession. He had to lie a little to Yang Kai to give him hope. Meanwhile, the guy was strolling through the Black Plum village. It was bustling with activity. Everyone was hurrying about their business. Every time Yang Kai had been to this village, he had felt a little anxious and uncomfortable, but today didn't have those feelings. The guy thought that maybe it was all about that golden skeleton from the Black Book. Walking along the busy street of the village, Yang Kai stopped briefly. He saw something interesting. There was a group of young men standing in the alley. Among them was a Heavenly Pavilion disciple. One of the guys saw that they were being watched. He had a deep scar on his forehead. This guy got really angry when he saw the intruder. They were clearly talking about something not good. Yang Kai decided not to get into trouble. He looked at the guys with a cold gaze and walked on. Yang Kai thought he saw a brother disciple in that crowd of brigands. However, the guy didn't pay much attention to it. After all, this village was in the vicinity of the Heavenly Pavilion, so disciples could often be seen here. Yang Kai entered a small shop in the village, he called out to his aunt. A middle-aged woman responded to Yang Kai's call. She was familiar with the guy and asked if he had come for rice. That's what Yang Kai came to their shop for. He asked them to sell him 1 sack. Auntie noticed that Yang Kai always buys a bag of rice once a month. She asked if it was enough. The guy smiled and said that was more than enough to survive. Auntie realized that Yang Kai was lying, after all. Just by looking at his skinny body, you could tell that he wasn't finishing his food. The guy said he also hunts in the mountains nearby to feed himself. The shopkeeper, who was Auntie's husband, allowed her to take the old rice from the storehouse and give it to young Kai. Auntie thought the idea was just fine. She hadn't thought of it before. Young Kai tried to refuse the offer. He said they didn't have to do that. Auntie explained that because the insects had chewed through the bags, they couldn't sell the rice, and getting rid of the insects was more important than a couple bags of rice. Auntie asked me to wait here. She was going to go and get that rice. Every time the guy bought rice, the boss and his wife kept finding different excuses to give him much more rice. Young Kai was touched by such a good attitude of total strangers towards him. He thanked them. The shopkeeper understood that Young Kai was lonely and going through a hard time. He let the guy come to them if he was ever hungry. Young Kai felt embarrassed at being treated so well by the shopkeeper. He accepted his offer. At this point, two men entered the store, one carrying the other on his shoulder. They were very rude to the sales assistant. One of these men pushed the salesman and he fell to the ground. Looks like the seller hurt himself something. His side was really sore from that fall. Yang Kai and the store owner immediately ran up to the salesperson. He asked what happened here. Yang Kai looked at the two men who entered. He realized that a conflict was brewing. One of the men had a deep scar on his forehead and asked who the boss of the store was. The boss replied that he was the owner. The man didn't understand what was going on here. The guy stated that this store sold his brother poisoned rice, and he became very weak after a bowl of this cereal. The shopkeeper covered himself in cold fetus. He was sure it just wasn't possible. The guy stated that his brother bought some rice from this stall in the morning and had lunch with it, after which he became so weak. The owner tried to straighten things out. He thought there had been a misunderstanding. However, the scarred guy was adamant that the owner was lying. Yang Kai listened carefully to the men's dialogue. It all seemed very suspicious to him. Yang Kai was eager to deal with this situation. He went to talk to those two men. However, the guy with the scar looked very creepy and ready to jump into a fight at any moment. The path was blocked by the store owner. He didn't want the guy to get involved. The store owner believed that even if he incurred a loss, he should avoid trouble. The shopkeeper's name was Uncle He. Yang Kai was very surprised by such a gesture and worried about the fate of his acquaintances. Uncle He replied that unfortunately there was nothing he could do to help with the scar guy's brother's illness. The man once again explained that there was absolutely nothing he could do about the situation. The owner suggested calling the guy a doctor. Uncle He offered to pay for the kids' treatment if their family was having money problems. The guy with the scar thought the shopkeeper was trying to make them look like crooks. He started making excuses and saying they were good people. Yang Kai realized that there was something unclean here. This man wouldn't make excuses like this. Uncle He didn't understand what the two guys wanted from him in that case. At this moment, the same Heavenly Pavilion disciple that Yang Kai had seen earlier walked through the door. Yang Kai realized that these were the guys he had seen in that alley earlier that day. The guy who walked in looked judgmentally at the two men who were trying to slander the shopkeeper. Yang Kai realized that these guys knew each other. He wondered what they were up to. This disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion looked carefully into the eyes of the scarred man. The scarred man fell silent and didn't make another sound. In the next moment, he told the student to stop acting like a hero. He asked what the student wanted. The one said that the brother man was so weak he wondered if it was such a strong poison. The scarred man replied that it was obvious and they were wasting valuable time getting the old man out in the open. Yang Kai asked if Uncle He had offended any of these people before. The shopkeeper didn't recall such a thing. He didn't think he had offended anyone. Yang Kai thought that perhaps this rice store might be bothering someone. However, Uncle He thought that this small store could be in anyone's way. Yang Kai found this strange. He wondered what these people wanted. The Heavenly Pavilion disciple smirked slyly. He clearly had ill intentions. In the next second, it was the apprentice who punched the scarred man's poisoned brother in the chest. That second man looked at the disciple with an evil gaze, then jumped away. The man had a very tense expression on his face, sweat running down his temple. The Heavenly Pavilion disciple found it strange that despite the poison, this man had dodged the attack so easily. All the people on the street started shouting that the guys were cheaters and also started praising the Heavenly Pavilion disciple. Yang Kai wouldn't have had any doubts about this performance if he hadn't seen everything earlier with his own eyes in the alley. He didn't understand why they needed this show. The scarred man started cursing at the student and told him to keep his nose out of other people's business. The guy introduced himself. His name was Sumu. He revealed that he was a disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion. The man immediately admitted defeat, but said he remembered Sumu and threatened that they would meet again. Yang Kai thought this masterpiece acting was hilarious. He thought they were just short of an Oscar. Sumu arbitrarily told the two to get out of his sight. He seemed to be happy with the outcome. Yang Kai understood that letting these yours like this go, their plan would be successfully executed, and it seemed Sumu was seeking respect. Yang Kai stopped the two, calling them cheaters. He felt that they needed to be taught a lesson, or they might pull the same prank again next time. The crowd here already supported Yang Kai's idea. They felt that they shouldn't just let the scoundrels go. This kind of thing might happen again in the future. Someone from the crowd told those two to stand where they were standing. An incomprehensible excitement appeared on Sumu's face. Sumu was being watched closely by Yang Kai. He was curious about his reaction. Yang Kai remembered that Sumu had said earlier that all good deeds should be brought to an end. He suggested that they should apprehend the two together. Sumu shouted and asked Yang Kai to stop. The guy thought it was strange. Yang Kai explained that he was also a disciple of the Celestial Pavilion, and had been there for almost 3 years. Sumu thought Yang Kai was stupid. Yang Kai told him that it was not worth wasting time. Yang Kai gave a heartbreaking speech about bravery and courage. He offered to help bring justice. The crowd supported Yang Kai. They thought that he had said a very good thing. At this time, Sumu was angry. Those two criminals looked fearfully at Sumu, while their reactions were carefully watched by Yang Kai. Yang Kai was trying to push Sumu into a reprisal. He had already run to attack himself. Sumu didn't know what to do, for this development was not in his plans. Sumu winked at those two. He felt that he should help them escape when the opportunity came. The situation became very tense. Those two were not sure of a positive outcome. Uncle He was going to help the boys and asked the pillar people to do so. All the residents rushed to help. They were armed with various items. The villagers surrounded the two boys. They were serious about teaching them a lesson. A fight broke out. The villagers pounded the two men wherever they could. They screamed pitifully. Sumu was stunned. He didn't understand at all what he should do about this situation. Finally, the beating was over. Those two lay on the ground with a bunch of bumps and beatings. The scarred man lying on the floor pulled his hand and called the disciple brother Su. Sumu was very angry. He asked who allowed him to be called by his name. Young Kai understood. He wondered how many of these howls had pulled off their evil deeds. One of the villagers said that such people are a disgrace to their village. Young Kai explained that they are a thorn in the side of this village and should be executed. He asked if they had any objections. The villagers themselves were surprised at such a cruel and radical decision. The scarred man kept glancing at Sumu in hopes of being saved. Sumu turned to Yang Kai. He asked if these two might have had enough. However, Yang Kai was going to follow through with his plan. He wanted to expose these criminals. Yang Kai explained that if their prank today was successful, this store would close down, and Uncle's family would not survive. Sumu was very nervous. He agreed with Yang Kai, but he thought that it was wrong to kill people like this. Sumu realized that they were hand and foot tied, and there was no way for them to get out of this situation.
Yang Kai said that they should stick to the path of justice and live a life of helping others, and it is worth interrupting the life of this trash.
Yang Kai asked if Sumu Kai had another reason why the disciple didn't want to kill them. Sumu asked if Yang Kai had suspicions that he knew something. At this point, Uncle He came over. He asked if the guy was sure of his decision. Maybe he shouldn't. However, Yang Kai was confident and determined to teach these two rogues a lesson. This meant it was worth playing to the end. Yang Kai thought that Sumu was the kind of person who stood for the weak. However, he didn't understand why he couldn't kill these two. Sumu laughed nervously. He asked if Yang Kai thought he was afraid to do it. Sumu replied that he was not afraid of anything, because he had seen people take their lives many times before. Yang Kai asked what Sumu was waiting for in that case. He kept prodding him into action. Sumu tensed up a lot. He didn't know what he should do to avoid revealing himself in this situation. At this moment, the man who was pretending to be sick jumped up from the floor and called Sumu a liar. He said that Sumu himself had made him and his brother come here and make a mess of things to get a good reputation, and now he wanted to kill them. Sumu tried to justify himself. He called the guy's story nonsense and untrue. The guy who had previously pretended to be sick was very surprised that Sumu didn't want to admit the obvious things. The guy told the people that he and his brother were victimized by Sumu. He made them do it because he thought that the daughter of the boss of this store would treat him better. Yang Kai finally realized what the whole show was for. It was all about the girl's disposition. Sumu was furious that his secrets were revealed. He shouted and told him not to say stupid things. The other guy said he wasn't talking nonsense, though they didn't know much about it, but even they thought the plan was dubious. The guy thought that everyone here should know the truth, and he and his brother were just victims of Sumu's plans. Their families were starving, so they decided to make money. Yang Kai. It was curious how much Sumu paid to see off the shopkeeper. The guy replied that Sumu was willing to pay 50 taels in silver. Yang Kai was surprised, because it was quite a large sum. The shopkeeper was very angry because Sumu was trying to get his daughter by such sneaky methods. Of course, Uncle He had no right to do anything to him since he was from the Heavenly Pavilion. However, if he were his parents, Uncle He would be ashamed. The villagers were shocked that someone from the Celestial Pavilion was capable of such meanness. They began to condemn Sumu. Sumu thought that he should leave the village after all. His reputation was ruined, and it was all because of Yang Kai. Sumu asked what Yang Kai's name was. He was very angry and resentful towards him. Yang Kai wasn't going to tell him that. He winked at him and offered to guess his name. Sumu told Yang Kai not to try to hide his name, because he would find out anyway. He clearly remembered the guy's face. Sumu hurriedly left the store as well. He shushed all the villagers who were standing at the exit. Yang Kai turned back. Those two crooks were already gone. They had run off somewhere. Uncle He thanked Yang Kai because the guy helped him out a lot today. But there might be trouble because of that. Yang Kai reassured his uncle. After all, Sumu is a bad person, and even if he remembers him, it's not a big deal. Uncle He advised the guy to still be careful, because he wouldn't be able to find a place for himself if something happened to Yang Kai. Uncle He's whole family wished Yang Kai a safe journey and waved after him. The boy thanked them for the rice. Meanwhile, Yang Kai had finally returned to his small hut after such a busy day in the village. The guy was even tired as he dragged the rice, but he was glad that now the whole next month could be spent not worrying about food. Yang Kai thought that Sumu would be waiting for him on his way home. However, this was not the case. Yang Kai remembered that according to the pavilion's rules, killing without a special reason as well as injuring was forbidden, and if Sumu did it, he would be punished. Yang Kai realized that Sumu would definitely throw a challenge at him in the future. He didn't know what level of body hardening his opponent was at. Yang Kai felt that he should start training immediately, or else, at best, he would face eviction. Yang Kai began to train hard outside. He used a wooden beam to train. Once the guy got that golden skeleton, his body was so aching, he thought it was worth it to start training half an hour before dawn. Yang Kai practically practiced for an hour every morning. He wondered what to do with the rest of the time. After his hard workout, the guy decided to take a bath because it relaxes him perfectly in the morning. Yang Kai thought about the fact that a double result from half the effort was certainly good, but the payoff was serious. He felt like he shouldn't overstretch his body. At that moment, an idea popped into the guy's head. He remembered something. Yang Kai had completely forgotten about the black magic book that was kept at his house. The first step of the golden body hardening technique is to build the foundation, and the second step is thorough body hardening where the very basics are practiced. After that, Yang Kai read about the third stage in the book, however. A bright light appeared from the book. A small golden teapot appeared right on the black dread of the book. Yang Kai was very surprised at this sudden appearance of the item. He took it in his hand and examined it carefully. According to what I read in the book, this vessel is supposed to help a guy practice. He transforms the rivers of herbs into strengthening incense. Now Yang Kai needs to search for the necessary ingredients. For Yang Kai at the current stage of development, the trefoil flower, or the herb, deadwood, would be suitable, but it has some toxic substances in it. The guy knew that these two plants should help him refine his body. Of course, in the contribution za, these plants are in stock. The price of these plants is not small, but now Yang Kai is lacking contribution points. So the guy only had to hope for luck in the mountains. Luckily, the Sky Pavilion is located in the vicinity of the mountain range. Yang Kai had made up his mind. The next day, he had to go to the mountains to look for herbs. At dawn, Yang Kai once again practiced his body hardening technique as usual. Then off to the contribution hall where he worked tirelessly sweeping the floors. A guy's hard work always pays off. The keeper gave him books featuring healing herbs. One such book features many well-known healing herbs, and includes not only their list and description, but also their approximate location. At noon, Yang Kai bypassed the document that allowed him to get 3 days off from the sect. This was the time the guy was going to use to search for healing herbs that should help in improving. Yang Kai went to the mountain range where, if the books were to be believed, those very healing herbs grew. Yang Kai thought that the location of these mountains was quite convenient after all. After a short search, Yang Kai found the necessary plants and began to pluck them. Afterwards, the guy would collect them in a big bag. He was very happy with his finds. Collecting this herb was a bit problematic. It required a lot of effort. However, Yang Kai wasn't going to give up. He was determined to go further up the mountain. On his way, the guy noticed something. It really surprised him and caught his attention. Right on the mountain path, a dead man grass was growing. Yang Kai hurriedly walked over to it. Moving closer, the guy examined it to make sure it was exactly what he needed. After that, Yang Kai took out his book of healing herbs and decided to see what the herb, deadwood, looked like. It was exactly that. The guy got very excited and started digging out his find. Meanwhile, the sun had already dipped below the horizon. Yang Kai was very tired and decided to take a break. Yang Kai had worried about himself beforehand. He took some rice on the road that he was going to eat. The boy decided that after he ate, he would climb a tree and sleep. Yang Kai did so. He climbed onto a high branch. Meanwhile, it was already deep night. The next morning, the guy started practicing the usual 1 hour a day. After practicing hard, you can have some breakfast. Yang Kai took out some rice that he had brought with him. Yang Kai hadn't finished his business on the mountain yet. He decided it was still worth it to search for herbs. It hadn't been long since he'd eaten, however the boy was hungry again. Yang Kai had originally planned to hunt, but in the whole day, not even a single rabbit was seen. However, the village was far away. Yang Kai wondered where he could find food as he suddenly saw smoke on the horizon. The boy realized that the one who made a fire in the middle of the mountains must be ignorant of fear or just a fool. Yang Kai went to the direction where the smoke was rising. Soon he saw a bonfire. Yang Kai wondered who had bred him, for he didn't see a single person near the fire. At the same instant, two people with bow and arrows appeared in front of Yang Kai. The guy tried to justify himself and said that he was just walking around and gathering herbs. One of the men realized they were in no danger and lowered his bow and arrow. The man thought the fire had attracted a wild animal. A boy was near him. Yang Kai apologized for disturbing the two people. He had no intention of doing so. The man said that the wind was cold in the mountains and suggested that we discuss everything by the fire. Yang Kai wasn't about to refuse. All three of them sat down around a small fire. Yang Kai wasn't the first to start a conversation. He sat quietly and looked at the burning flames. The man's name was Zhang Shan. He comes from a village at the foot of the mountains. They go here to hunt. The boy next to him was also an avid hunter and a very skillful one at that. Zhang Shan wanted to know more about Yang Kai. He asked where he was from and where he was going. Yang Kai introduced himself and stood up. He explained that he was a disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion and was here looking for herbs. Zhang Shan was surprised that the guy was a disciple of the Heavenly Pavilion. The boy next to him also wants to start practicing there one day, and he greatly admires the disciples of the Celestial Pavilion. Yang Kai stroked the boy's head and said that even if he wasn't very talented, strength and hard work would overcome everything. At this moment, Kai's stomach rumbled loudly, for the guy had been hungry for a long time. The boy laughed upon hearing this. He found the situation amusing. The boy handed Yang Kai a piece of bread. The boy looked very even friendly. Yang Kai didn't want to cause any inconvenience, but he realized that in the mountains, food was worth its weight in gold. Zhang Shan realized that the guy apparently hadn't eaten anything for a long time and insisted that he take bread. Yang Kai was honored by such a gesture. He thanked his new acquaintances. Soon night came. The boys put out the fire and all three went to bed. With the first rays of the sun, Yang Kai already needed to get up and practice hardening his body. The guy knew that even individually, the herb had excellent medicinal effects. It was already something. Yang Kai found an empty clearing and stood in a stance, concentrating. After that, the guy did a few lunges forward, practicing to perfection. Yang Kai didn't understand what was happening. He felt a strange warm feeling all over his body. His meridians were being filled with something. Yang Kai realized that he had advanced to the 5th stage of body hardening. He had only been practicing this technique for a couple of days, and he had already achieved such a result. On that happy note, the boy decided it was time to continue his journey and gather more herbs. Yang Kai wondered what it would be like if practice time wasn't limited to dawn alone. After that, the guy went into the woods to find some food. He managed to kill a rabbit. Yang Kai had already walked about 30 miles from the entrance. If he decided to push further, he might encounter dangerous beasts. Yang Kai headed in the other direction through the forest, however. An unpleasant feeling closed in his soul. At that moment, strange sounds were heard in the thicket of the forest, and birds flew from there. Yang Kai anxiously turned around and looked in that direction. He suspected something wrong. The boy ran with all his legs in that direction. He realized that something might have happened to his new acquaintances. Yang Kai came running to the entrance of the cave. It was all covered in thick cobwebs. Near her, Yang Kai saw a bow lying on the ground. He immediately realized who it belonged to. The guy dropped his trauma pouch so he could move more comfortably. Yang Kai was about to enter the mysterious cave and find out for himself. He had a bad feeling. Inside, the cave looked creepy. It looked like no one had entered it in years. There were cobwebs everywhere. Yang Kai walked into the depths. There were human and animal skeletons lying everywhere, wrapped in cobwebs. At that moment, the guy saw something that shocked him. It was Zhang Shan, who looked more like a spider victim wrapped in a web. Yang Kai put his fingers to his nose. He made sure that luckily the man was still breathing. Hearing Yang Kai, Zhang Shan slowly and laboriously opened his eyes. The man shouted that the spider had dragged the boy inside the cave. He asked Yang Kai to save him. Unambiguously, the guy was going to help Zhang Shan. He tried to break the threads, however. It was very difficult. Yang Kai realized that there was no time, so he went to rescue the boy. Zhang Shan thanked him. Zhang Shan also shouted after Yang Kai to be careful, for this spider was huge in size. Yang Kai spotted the same huge spider that Zhang Shan had told him about. The spider was indeed of incredible size. It spun a huge web and held the boy in its clutches. At this very moment, the spider was piercing the child's body with its fangs. Yang Kai rushed to the boy's aid. He ran towards him with all his legs to stop the monster. However, the spider was not so simple. It blocked Yang Kai's path with its belly. Skeletons of people fell from the web, and the body of a boy also fell. The spider had noticed Yang Kai and wasn't about to let go of its prey just like that. Yang Kai tried to run away from the monster, however. It chased after him with great speed. The spider managed to catch up to the guy and pinned him to the ground and loomed over him. Yang Kai tried his best to fight off the animal. He punched its belly with all his might with his fist. The guy then started kicking his legs to somehow throw the animal off himself. The guy's risk of being poisoned by a spider was too high. He shouldn't waste any more time, even though it was just a monster. With Yang Kai's current level of strength, It had to be difficult. If the guy didn't hurry, the boy might die, for he had already been dispatched. At this moment, young Kai noticed something. He was a bit distracted and didn't follow his opponent. And the huge spider started shooting webs, wanting to imprison young Kai in its shackles. However, the guy managed to escape this confinement. He didn't let the web hit him. However, the spider didn't give up. He fired his web once more. To young Kai's surprise, the spider web wasn't aimed at him. The guy wondered and tried to figure out what the creature was up to. It turns out the purpose of the spider was to seal the entrance to the cave, so young Kai couldn't get out. The boy realized that the spider wanted to make them stay here to die. The next instant, the spider began to attack once more. It prepared to blow a web. The spider did so. It quickly released 3 streams of webs. One of them scratched young Kai's leg. Young Kai ran straight at the spider. He was about to strike it and swung at it. However, the spider was quick and cunning. He put one of his paws out from behind his back. This paw had a spike on the end, soaked in poison. It hit young Kai's arm. Young Kai looked directly into the spider's numerous eyes. They were burning red, the beast hissed. Despite the fact that this injection was painful, the guy was somehow not worried. With the same hand that had been pierced by the spider's sting, the guy swung at him. The spider didn't expect the guy to still be able to wield it. He struck the animal's muzzle with a sharp motion. The spider squealed loudly and blood began to spurt from its body. Young Kai was about to finish off this beast. He swung a few more times and kicked at the spider's body. Young Kai hit the 2 eyes on the spider. Blood was flowing out of them. Now the accuracy of the animal's strikes had decreased. However, the spider still didn't stop. It kept on striking with its paws, hitting the guy's body. Young Kai noticed that the spider still wouldn't settle down. It was surprisingly tenacious. The spider hit Young Kai's arm a few more times, releasing venom into it. The guy grabbed onto the monster's paws. At one point, the guy noticed that the spider's paw was starting to delaminate, and it was already easier to break. Young Kai realized that the spider's strength was already running low. He was going to end this battle. The boy gathered his strength into a fist and struck the spider's face with it. The spider fell to the ground belly up, even though it was just a wild beast. At the 5th stage of hardening, it was proving to be a difficult challenge for the guy. Young Kai took out the sting of the spider from his hand. It was covered in blood. The boy then tried to untangle the cobwebs around him and walked over to the boy lying next to him. Young Kai took the boy in his arms with a concerned look and carried him towards the exit of the cave. Zhang Shanyu was already waiting for the guys there. He was very worried about the boy and asked what was wrong with him. Young Kai didn't know what to answer. He himself was worried about the boy's life. The guy replied that the boy had lost too much blood, so was now unconscious. Young Kai knew how to help him. He put the child on the ground and asked them to wait for him here. The guy needed to find something. He ran towards the exit of the cave and was going to make the best of it. Young Kai found the pouch of medicinal herbs he had left behind and took out a few of them. After that, Young Kai threw them into his mouth and chewed these medicinal herbs for a while. It was necessary for a mush to form. Young Kai spat it out into his hand. Young Kai applied this mixture to the boy's injured arm. It was supposed to help. The guy knew that the medicinal properties of these herbs were excellent against poison. He was sure everything would be fine. After a while, the boy began to show signs of life. He twitched a little and took a deep breath. Zhang Shan suddenly cried with joy. The man couldn't believe his eyes. Zhang Shan was very happy that the boy would be fine. He kept crying. Young Kai explained that it wasn't really true, and his herbs only neutralized the bite site. But the boy needed full treatment. Zhang Shan was going to take him to the hospital. Young Kai asked him to take his time, after all. The effects of the herbs should strengthen a bit. Zhang Shan remembered something. He had been so worried that he had forgotten something. The man asked what about Young Kai, for he too had been stung by a spider. Young Kai was fine. He said he didn't need to worry about him. Zhang Shan was surprised that the guy could still stay on his feet after losing so much blood. Young Kai wasn't particularly sure, yet for some reason he felt completely fine. At this moment, Young Kai was struck. He remembered something and ran outside of the cave. The boy grabbed his pouch of healing herbs and promised to return soon. Young Kai told Zhang Shan to wait for him here. The man agreed. While the guy was fighting this giant spider, he noticed that there was a whole trove of healing herbs in the cave. After running for a bit, Young Kai spotted a trefoil. There were indeed many of these medicinal herbs growing there. The shamrock was a small pink-colored flower with 3 petals. This plant is very finicky. She grows in damp and dark places. There are many corpses in this cave that were like fertilizer. Young Kai knew that these guys had helped him. After all, it was only through their footsteps that he had found the cave. At this moment, Young Kai noticed something strange on the wall. It was a plant that the guy hadn't seen in the old man's book. Without thinking long, the boy picked this mushroom-like plant. He was going to show it to the old man later. All 3 of them made it out of the cave alive. Young Kai was going to escort his new acquaintances to the doctor. Zhang Shan was very grateful to Young Kai. He felt that he would not be able to pay the guy back forever. However, Young Kai didn't need anything. He said it was small things. Soon the boys came to the nearest village to see Mr. Healer. Jiangshan asked the doctor what was wrong with his son and if he could be cured. Mr. Healer pushed the man outside, for he was only interfering with his treatment of the boy. Jiangshan had a worried face. He looked at Yang Kai and turned to him. The same man fell down in a low bow, for Mr. Physician had said that thanks to his medicine, it was possible to cure the boy, and without Yang Kai's help, he would not have survived. Yang Kai explained that he was only helping as much as he could, especially earlier they had fed him. Jiangshan thought Yang Kai was a really good person. He was very happy that everything ended well. Meanwhile, the healer had already finished the procedures on the boy. It seemed to be fine. The healer said that the boy was perfectly fine, but because of the loss of blood, he would not regain consciousness for some time. Jiangshan ran up to the master healer. He thanked him wholeheartedly for saving his son. Meanwhile, the sect was very noisy. The guys were talking very loudly among themselves. Some people were wondering if Yang Kai had returned to work, since he had been missing for the past few days. The guys wondered if he had left the Sky Pavilion, but others were sure that it couldn't happen, and the guy had a resilient character. Nearby, Sumu and his group walked by. He was clearly unhappy about something while the other guys were laughing. At this moment, Sumu noticed something strange nearby. He turned to see what it was. The guy saw a crowd of people surrounding something. He wondered what was going on. Comrade Sumu explained to him that today was the day for the disciples to challenge young Kai. He thought it was a good chance for Sumu to do so. Sumu felt that Kai had some difficulties with his fighting skills. His comrade explained that basically Kai gets beaten up every time. He wondered how he was still holding up. Sumu might have felt sorry for Kai. When this pity was not enough to forgive him, he wanted to get Kai kicked out of the Heavenly Pavilion. Comrade Sumu knew that Yang Kai dared to spoil Sumu's plan in Black Plum City. The guy was surprised that he didn't even bother to find out more about his opponent. Sumu decided to stop these conversations. It was already time to act and teach Kai a lesson. Comrade Sumu turned to the rest of the Heavenly Pavilion disciples and revealed that Sumu was going to put Young Kai in his place. One of the guys was indignant, since Yang Kai always uses his broom as his opponent of choice. He wondered why the guys didn't come earlier. Comrade Sumu patted and asked if he knew who Sumu was. It seems like the guy really didn't know that. The guy was told that Sumu's sister was currently in the top 10 strongest disciples in the Heavenly Pavilion, and it was best not to mess with her. The guy also added that Yang Kai was not worthy of being compared to Sumu. The other guy immediately fell silent. All of the guys hearing about Sumu's status hurriedly fulfilled his request, while Sumu himself smiled evilly. 10 minutes later, all the guys came to the place where Yang Kai usually swept. They wondered why he still hadn't come. Comrade Sumu didn't know this, because usually Yang Kai always appeared at this time to sweep the area. He suggested to check his hut. Sumu was already angry. He thought that Yang Kai was delaying the inevitable and told him to bring him to the guy's hut. The other disciples of the Heavenly Pavilion were carefully watching Sumu's actions. Sumu was led to a small hut. He was surprised that this was where their hero lived. Comrade Sumu explained that Yang Kai was left to his own devices, taking care of his food, clothing, shelter, and other things, and had probably built the hut himself. Sumu was not interested in knowing all this. He was already eager to deal with his rival and teach Kai a lesson. Sumu walked to the wooden hut and shouted loudly. He told Yang Kai not to hide and to come out if he dared. However, the lad heard nothing in reply. There was silence all around. Sumu tried shouting once more. He threatened that if Yang Kai didn't come out now, he would make him do it. However, no one answered him again. Sumu was even angrier from this. Sumu was filled with anger and shouted at the top of his voice and told Yang Kai to open the door. Sumu couldn't wait any longer. His nerves gave up and he kicked open the door to the hut with his foot. His comrade went first to look around. However, there was no one inside. The guy thought that Yang Kai had just escaped. Sumu was surprised to hear that his opponent might have escaped. He was now pondering what to do in such a situation. The guys hadn't seen Kai for a few days either. They thought that once the guy found out who Sumu was, he immediately ran away. Sumu felt that even if he escaped, his hatred could not be extinguished easily. He ordered to carry a torch to burn the hut. The guys were shocked at such evil intentions of Sumu. They didn't budge. Comrade Sumu asked if it was too much, since the hut was Kai's only dwelling. Sumu asked what the guy was afraid of. After all, you could just say it was the straw catching fire. Sumu was once again angry that his order was not being obeyed. He once again ordered to carry the torch. Sumu finally took out a torch and stood with it in his hands in front of Yang Kai's hut. At this moment, someone placed a hand on Sumu's shoulder and asked what he was up to. Sumu replied that he was going to burn down the house and told him not to interfere. Another man asked why he wanted to burn down his house. Sumu did not immediately realize what the stranger was talking about. He turned around and asked if this was his house. However, Sumu immediately fell silent as soon as he saw who was standing behind his back. It was Yang Kai. He had just returned from his trek into the forest and was all beat up. Sumu immediately moved away from him and brushed Yang Kai's hand away, anger red on his face. Sumu asked as Yang Kai dared to touch his shoulder. Yang Kai recognized Sumu. He remembered those incidents in the city recently. Sumu angrily said that he had not forgotten about that incident, and Yang Kai would be punished today. Yang Kai asked if Sumu had any business with him. Sumu told him not to be naive. He was going to see how he would talk soon. Yang Kai asked if Sumu wanted to throw him a challenge. The guy was very serious. Sumu felt that Yang Kai was overconfident, as if he had already defeated him. Sumu took a closer look at Yang Kai. He didn't understand why the guy was so shabby. Sumu looked at the wound on Kai's shoulder. He noticed that there wasn't even a living spot on the guy's body. Sumu wondered what could have happened to Yang Kai that such wounds appeared on his body. Sumu threw the torch to the ground and stomped it with his foot in a sharp movement. Sumu told Yang Kai not to say later that he didn't warn him and got into a fighting stance himself. Yang Kai stopped the guy. He asked him to wait for his opponent for a moment. Sumu was surprised at Kai's impudence, and the guy leisurely went to his hut. Comrade Sumu said that Yang Kai doesn't really care about his face, so that could explain it all. Sumu thought it was funny, because he had been told before that he never gave up on them. He was already eager to see Yang Kai beaten to death. Yang Kai went into his hut at this time to drop off the bag of herbs he had gathered in the forest. Yang Kai went back to Sumu and asked what he had said before and what he was going to do. Sumu said that Yang Kai had signed the death sentence. He was going to make the guy regret. However, the guy had a chance to redeem himself. He told Yang Kai to kneel down and bow down. Yang Kai wasn't going to do that. He shook his head from side to side with a look of disagreement. Sumu was surprised at this answer. He was sure that Yang Kai would do anything not to fight. Yang Kai explained that he couldn't do that. He cared more about his dignity. All the other students were surprised by this answer. Sumu asked what Yang Kai meant. Yang Kai was going to explain it to him. Sumu told his opponent to think hard about it with a smug expression. Yang Kai asked if Sumu had any connections. The guy realized that his opponent wouldn't set his house on fire without some kind of cover. Sumu became even more proud and replied that he was. Yang Kai also assumed that this person had a high status in the sect. Sumu said that he had a sister and a brother who were core disciples. He would just tell them, and they would immediately kill Kai with one finger. Yang Kai put his hand on Sumu's shoulder and said that this truly frightened him. Sumu dropped Yang Kai's hand from his shoulder. He asked if Yang Kai thought he was playing games with him. Yang Kai asked why Sumu was so confident in his support. Because if Sumu lost to him, it was unlikely that his sister or brother would go to avenge him. And if Yang Kai wanted to, not only the elders would know about Sumu's action. Sumu became nervous. He knew that things might not turn out in his favor. At this moment, Comrade Sumu intervened. He stated that Kai had a sharp tongue. Sumu felt that they had had enough of talking, and if Yang Kai didn't apologize to him right now, the consequences would be serious. Yang Kai seemed to be completely unafraid of him. He asked how about a little fight. Sumu asked if Yang Kai thought he was afraid of him. Sumu thought that Yang Kai simply had no right to challenge him. Yang Kai remembered that disciples couldn't challenge each other if the difference in their strength exceeded 3 steps. Sumu turned around and asked if the guys had heard that Yang Kai, being at the 3rd stage of body hardening, wanted to challenge him. Everyone else laughed. At this moment, one of the Heavenly Pavilion disciples volunteered to help Sumu. His strength among the disciples was the most mediocre, but he believed that being at the 5th stage of body hardening, he would be able to defeat Kai. Yang Kai was indeed in the 3rd stage 5 days ago, however, things are different now. That guy's name was Zhao Hu. He told Yang Kai to remember him because today he was going to make the guy regret his words. Zhao Hu was going to let Yang Kai, as his younger brother, land 3 punches, and if even one of them went through, he would admit defeat. However, if not, the guy asked not to be blamed if he beat him too badly. Sumu thought that Zhao Hu was not bad, and he knew how to humiliate a person. This fight, as well as all the others, was watched by a girl in purple clothes. The girl was in the tree as usual, watching Kai's next fight intently. Yang Kai felt that this was not good. He didn't want to have an advantage over his brother. Zhao Hu still insisted on his own. After all, Yang Kai is his younger brother and he just has to give him a chance. Yang Kai still agreed to such conditions, but apologized in advance if he overdid it. Zhao Hu was already impatient to defeat his opponent. He stopped their conversations and told Yang Kai to attack. Zhao Hu didn't understand how someone like Kai with his strength and physique could overpower him. However, Yang Kai was confident in his strength and that he could defeat his opponent. Yang Kai, with full confidence in his voice, asked Zhao Hu to get ready to fight. Zhao Hu believed that he was on full alert and told Yang Kai to attack. Not even a second later, Zhao Hu regretted his words. The guy felt a sharp pain in his body. Turns out Yang Kai was very quick to strike the guy's chest. He didn't have time to react. Kai's fist moved with incredible speed and was full of power. Yang Kai once again hit Zhao Hu right in the center of his chest. The guy felt pain in his whole body. And the 3rd blow that Yang Kai threw came straight to the guy's face. He swung his foot and knocked his opponent down. Sumu, as well as the rest of the guys, were just shocked at what happened on the battlefield. They looked at Zhao Hu lying on the ground in astonishment. Everyone realized that he had lost. The purple-clad girl who was watching the fight was also in shock over what had happened. After all, for the first time in a long time, if not ever, Yang Kai won. From such a shock, the girl stumbled and fell from the tree to the ground. The girl bumped painfully against a hard surface. Yang Kai seemed strange to the girl, after all. Just a few days ago, he had lost to a disciple at the 4th stage of body hardening, and today, he had easily defeated a disciple at the 5th stage. Since coming, the girl noticed that Yang Kai had developed a breathing process, also improved his body, which meant he had increased his body hardening. However, the girl didn't understand how the guy did it in just a few days. Yang Kai analyzed his fight. He knew that his punching power control was not very good at the moment. Sumu was puzzled by what had happened. He didn't understand how Yang Kai had done this. Sumu told Yang Kai not to talk nonsense. He was furious. Yang Kai asked if Sumu thought he was unworthy of a duel with Sumu. Sumu knew what to say to this. He was very angry and couldn't utter a word. Comrade Sumu realized that Yang Kai was probably not at the 3rd stage. Otherwise, there was no way he would be able to overpower Zhao Hu. Sumu thought that his friend was right. He thought Zhao Hu was too confident. He wondered just how strong Yang Kai was. Sumu stated that Yang Kai was pretty good at hiding his strength before. Sumu wasn't going to fight him. He said that he would let the guy live today. Sumu arrogantly told everyone else to leave. The guys picked up the beaten Zhao Hu and carried him along. Yang Kai thought that it certainly felt good to win, however. The guy was missing something. Yang Kai realized that Sumu was the reason he missed the morning practice. The guy was saddened by this. After that, Yang Kai decided to take a little swim in the lake near his hut. The guy's whole body was covered in abrasions and bruises. He took his time getting into the water. At this time, the purple-clothed girl was looking for Kai. She wanted to ask what stage of body hardening he was at right now. The girl finally found Yang Kai. She was very embarrassed when she saw him. Yang Kai was just about to enter the lake. He was wearing no clothes at all. The girl was surprised. The girl thought Yang Kai was shameless because he washes naked in broad daylight. Yang Kai felt that he should hurry up. He had washed away the dirt and blood from his wounds. After that, the guy threw on some clothes. It had been a few days since his last cleaning, and he needed to get back to his duties. Yang Kai picked up his old broken broom that was standing outside the hut. Yang Kai believed that even though there are many things that need to be done, it is always worth doing what you set out to do. Yang Kai finished sweeping. He walked back into his wooden hut. The boy decided to see what he had managed to gather in the forest. He took his pouch. The herbs Yang Kai needed, he was going to use in that vessel, and sell the rest to the old man in the contribution hall. Yang Kai thought that it might be worth wearing old clothes to influence the old man. Yang Kai went to the contribution hall. The old man was just drinking tea there. Guardian Meng wasn't expecting anyone this day. He leisurely sipped some tea from his cup. As Yang Kai suddenly saw Yang Kai in front of him, the old man was so surprised that he spat out all the tea. Guardian Meng asked what had happened to Kai, that he looked so battered. Yang Kai didn't explain anything to him, just said that he had returned with herbs. Guardian Meng asked if something had happened in the mountains. The boy replied that he had had some difficulties. Afterward, Yang Kai added that the harvest came out good. He took out some plants from the bag. Guardian Meng knew that the herbs in front of him were common medicinal herbs that were found almost everywhere and were of no value. Guardian Meng didn't understand how best to proceed, and whether he should buy all these herbs. Guardian Meng still decided to buy 2 herbs in exchange for 1 merit point. Yang Kai showed the old man more medicinal herbs he had gathered. Guardian Meng asked if the guy had gathered all this while in the mountains for 3 days. Yang Kai thought that the fact that he had managed to find all these herbs was already very good. Guardian Meng replied that it was, and he himself looked carefully at all those plants in front of him. The old man thought that although Kai's development was very little, he had worked hard, and in their time not many youths would become herb gatherers. Yang Kai looked around as if looking around to see that no one was around. Guardian Meng asked Kai what the boy was looking at so intently. Yang Kai whispered to the old man that it seems that this time in the mountains, he had found one incredible thing. Guardian Meng was interested in these words. He asked what the guy had found. Yang Kai didn't know what it was, and that was why he brought it here, because the old man definitely knew it. It was the same mushroom that Yang Kai had picked in the cave. The old man looked at it carefully. Yang Kai asked if Keeper Meng knew what this unusual flu was. Guardian Meng asked where Yang Kai found this mushroom. The guy replied that he found it in a cave. There he encountered a spider that was guarding this mushroom. The old man got upset. After saying that the guy had encountered a spider, he told him not to go anywhere. Yang Kai started to make excuses. After all, he had never thought of going deep into the mountain. This cave was on the outskirts. Guardian Meng was surprised that Yang Kai was able to overpower the wild beast. After all, it was very dangerous. Guardian Meng stated that this time, Yang Kai was unspeakably lucky. The old man thought for a while and looked at the mushroom. Then he voiced his guess that it was a blood mushroom and it was quite rare. Yang Kai excitedly looked at Keeper Meng, waiting for his verdict. The old man also stated that this mushroom is at entry level, and it is a great find. Yang Kai was very excited that it was a rare mushroom. He interrogated the old man about it. Guardian Meng stated that he has read many books and recipes describing various plants. He is sure of it. Yang Kai asked how many points he could get for this rare mushroom. Guardian Meng replied that he was willing to offer 20 points for such a find. Yang Kai was immediately upset, for this amount seemed small to him. Guardian Meng said that it was not insignificant. Yang Kai shouldn't have expected more. Even if this mushroom was low level, it is still too small and its age is not great. Yang Kai had agreed to sell his find for 20 points after all. In those mountains, the guy got enough of all the herbs he needed, and also earned 36 contribution points. Now he had 48 points. Of all the herbs the lad had gathered, the deadman's herbs were the least. Yang Kai, while he was in the deposit hall, stated that he wanted to purchase 10 pieces of deadman's herb. The guardian said it would equal 10 contribution points and asked again if the guy was sure. Yang Kai was surprised at this amount, because earlier the old man had said that 2 herbs equaled 1 contribution point. The old man explained that the purchase price and the sale price are different, and they are not the same. Yang Kai felt that Keeper Meng only wanted his profits. The guy was upset. The old man stated that it is not he who wants to reap the profits, but the main gate. They are the ones who set the prices. Yang Kai was very upset that he would have to give a considerable amount of money for the grass. Guardian Meng interjected, asking if Yang Kai still needed grass. Yang Kai confidently replied that he wanted to buy it despite the price. After their transaction took place, Yang Kai was in a depressed mood. Keeper Meng didn't want the guy to leave so quickly. However, Yang Kai hurriedly left the contribution hall, and with his head down, he walked home. As the guy was walking down the street on his way, he met the same girl in purple clothes. The girl immediately noticed Yang Kai since she was constantly watching him, however. He didn't know her. The girl walked into the contribution hall and told Keeper Meng that she was back. The girl lowered her mask and asked if anything untoward had happened. Guardian Meng replied that everything was fine. He was just thinking about it. Meanwhile, Yang Kai had already returned home. He put the kettle on warm to brew some herbs. Yang Kai heard a strangish odor coming from the teapot, but he didn't smell anything special. Yang Kai was going to put this vessel on the bed and see what would happen. Yang Kai got up from the table and headed towards the bed as the smoke spread throughout the room. The next moment, the guy felt a numbness that stiffened his entire body. Yang Kai couldn't even go any further. He didn't immediately realize what had happened to him. Yang Kai was quite upset at this unusual effect. The guy could no longer stand on his feet. He dropped the herbal teapot and fell to his knees. Yang Kai didn't even have the strength to take a few steps. The guy was dousing himself with cold sweat. Yang Kai tried to move his arm, however he failed. His body didn't obey the guy at all. The shamrock flower and deadman's herb were slightly poisonous, and when burned, they could cause paralysis of the body. This kettle didn't just burn herbs, but also increased their effectiveness. Yang Kai knew this, however he became proud. However, this could ruin him. Breakthroughs are much more effective when maximized. Yang Kai realized that he must not lose consciousness, or else there was a chance of serious injury. The guy needed to stand up and push his limits. That's what practicing martial arts is all about. Making an effort on himself, he struggled to lift his upper body. To the guy's surprise, he succeeded. A second later, he was on his feet. Yang Kai rejoiced. He thought of passing out. His body not only no longer hurt, but also became stronger. Guy knew that only intense pain and perseverance could stimulate the body at critical moments. Yang Kai was glad that he had used this golden vessel. He walked over and was about to pick it up. The guy knew that this vessel was too effective, but 1 serving of herbs was only enough for an hour. If you carry out this procedure 7 to 8 times a day, the supply of herbs will quickly run out. Yang Kai only had 30 contribution points left. It wasn't enough to buy herbs. Meanwhile, night fell. Sumu lay in bed and pondered over what had happened. The guy felt that if it wasn't for Yang Kai, he would have won the heart of the shopkeeper's daughter long ago. Sumu approached his friend, who was sweetly sleeping, however. The guy woke him up. Comrade Sumu struggled but still managed to wake up. It was deep night. Sumu's friend was very sleepy. He rubbed his eyes and asked what happened. Sumu replied that his friend knew everything himself. He asked if he had any ideas. The guy replied that it had been 4 days. Sumu felt that they couldn't procrastinate any longer and needed to deal with Kai as soon as possible. Sumu was angry at his friend. He told him to stay awake on the go and start generating useful thoughts. From such a shout, Sumu's friend immediately woke up. He was even frightened by the pressure. There was another guy in the room with them. He said he just had an idea. This disciple approached Sumu and told his plan in his ear. Sumu thought his idea sounded good. He decided to trust this guy. That guy had a sly smile. He was going to do whatever Sumu was asking. Meanwhile, morning came. It was a clear and sunny day. Yang Kai was sweeping the yard as usual. He had a pretty good strength breakthrough yesterday. The kid was going to finish sweeping the yard as soon as possible and get back to practice. At this moment, the same guy walked up to Yang Kai. He had a worried look. Yang Kai asked what this guy wanted from him. The guy immediately smiled. The guy replied that he heard that Yang Kai was able to defeat Zhao Hu. Yang Kai asked if the guy had any problems with him. The guy replied that it was all in the past. Zhao Hu was bullying him. Yang Kai asked if the guy wanted to get even with him. The guy replied that he used to dream about it. However, there were problems. Zhao Hu has strong connections within the pavilion, and he couldn't provoke him. Yang Kai thought that Zhao Hu was a man from Sumu's gang. The guy smiled and thanked Yang Kai for defeating Zhao Hu. He felt better for it. The guy also added that it turns out that Yang Kai is not as weak as people say he is. Yang Kai replied that he still had a lot of work to do. The guy thought that Yang Kai was too modest. Yang Kai realized that if he hadn't won yesterday, he would still be considered weak. The guy introduced himself. His name was Li Yuntian. He wanted to learn a couple techniques from Kai. Yang Kai was surprised that the guy wanted to learn from him. Li Yuntian assured him that this was the case. He had a very enthusiastic look. Li Yuntian wanted to see with his own eyes the strength of Kai, who had defeated Zhao Hu. Yang Kai didn't know what to reply to such an unusual request. He fell silent. Yang Kai asked Li Yuntian to forget about it. After all, he usually didn't exchange blows without a drastic need to do so. Li Yuntian had really asked for this, as it was a great opportunity for him to learn something. Li Yuntian's plan at this rate could fail. The guy was a bit worried about it. Li Yuntian felt that he still shouldn't refuse him after all. It was also a valuable experience for himself. However, Yang Kai remained adamant. Li Yuntian didn't understand why Yang Kai was refusing. After all, this sparring would be beneficial to both of them. However, no words from the guy could change Yang Kai's mind. Li Yuntian once again asked why Yang Kai didn't want to help Junior. Li Yuntian asked if Yang Kai was afraid of losing his contribution points. Li Yuntian stated that he would not prove to be weaker than him. After all, he had defeated Zhao Hu, and if the guy was really afraid of losing, he shouldn't worry, because he would make up for all the points. Yang Kai asked if Li Yuntian was sure about this, because the guy really didn't want to lose points. Li Yuntian assured him that this was exactly the case. He gave him his word. Li Yuntian was surprised that Yang Kai was still hesitant. Yang Kai eventually agreed, however. He had only recently been challenged, so he would have to wait a few days. Li Yuntian said that by all rules, Yang Kai could challenge the guy himself since he hadn't gotten them in a long time. Yang Kai remembered this. He had never challenged anyone in the past 3 years, so he had long forgotten this rule. Li Yuntian asked if they could already start their sparring. Yang Kai interjected that if he lost, would Yuntian really share his points? The latter assured that he would make up for all the points he lost. Yang Kai smiled and said that Li Yuntian should not take back his words. Yang Kai leaned towards his opponent and said that if he thought it was too brazen of him, he could do something about it. Li Yuntian was a little shocked by these words. He stopped and thought about what Yang Kai had told him. Li Yuntian was very enthusiastic. He was willing to do it and told Yang Kai to wait for him for a while. Li Yuntian ran somewhere with all his legs, he said, running there and back. Yang Kai thought that this world is too amazing, and people come to your doorstep with a piece of pie themselves, but that's only good for the guy. Yang Kai was trying to figure out what Li Yuntian was up to. Meanwhile, Sumu was watching the guy from around the corner. Yang Kai, not to be idle, began sweeping the floors as he was accustomed to doing. Sumu followed him everywhere. He carefully watched how his opponent behaved. Comrade Sumu learned some details. It turns out Yang Kai asked Li Yuntian to bring a dozen herbs as compensation. Sumu thought that it was a rather meager request, and a dozen herbs gathered wouldn't make up for the lost contribution points. Comrade Sumu added that Li Yuntian had a big mouth and promised to give Yang Kai 10 times more herbs. Sumu thought it was worth leaving it for now. He was sure that Yang Kai would be taught, and these herbs were a small loss. Yang Kai all continued to quietly sweep and ground, waiting for his opponent to come over. Li Yuntian ran away from Keeper Meng with the herbs. He thought the old man was a profiteer, after all. For every 10 herbs, he gave away 20 contribution points. The guy finally returned to Yang Kai, who was quietly waiting for him. Li Yuntian handed Yang Kai a pouch of medicinal herbs and said that he could reread them. Yang Kai took the pouch and said there was no need for that. He believed the guy. Li Yuntian asked if they could start sparring. Yang Kai assured Li Yuntian that they could start fighting at any moment. Li Yuntian asked Kai to enlighten him. Yang Kai, also like his opponent, folded his hands into a welcoming stance. Li Yuntian was the first to run to attack Kai. He was about to strike him with his palm. However, Yang Kai was not going to lose so easily. He skillfully repelled his opponent's attack with his fist. Yang Kai hit Li Yuntian a little harder. The latter jumped back. Li Yuntian was very surprised, for the sensation was as if he had hit a large boulder. Li Yuntian decided to try to strike once more. This time he was more serious. On his second attempt, Li Yuntian still managed to touch Kai's body. However, Yang Kai grabbed his opponent's hand with a sharp movement and clasped it tightly. That was Kai's plan. He looked angry and laughed at his opponent. Li Yuntian couldn't believe that he had been fooled. After all, he was confident of his victory. In the next second, Yang Kai swung his foot and kicked Li Yuntian in the face. Li Yuntian flew far backwards from such a strong blow. Yang Kai was going to teach his opponent a lesson, so he ran at him and punched him in the face with his fist. Li Yuntian could no longer take such a beating. He stopped the fight and admitted defeat. Yang Kai stopped at the same second, his opponent lying on the ground. Yang Kai offered to help Li Yuntian get up from the ground. The latter leaned on his hands. Meanwhile, Sumu and his friend were watching everything from behind the bushes. Sumu asked what stage of body tempering Li Yuntian was currently at. His friend replied that he was currently at the 7th stage. However, he had little knowledge of martial skills. Sumu was furious, for he didn't understand how the 4th stage of body hardening was able to defeat the 7th stage. At this moment, someone placed a hand on Sumu's shoulder. It seemed like the guy already understood who it could be. Yang Kai said that if there was an opportunity in the future, Sumu should not hesitate to come to him. Sumu was shocked that Yang Kai knew everything. Yang Kai replied that yesterday, although Li Yuntian was hiding in the crowd, he was with Sumu, and the guy has a good memory for faces. Yang Kai replied that it was already time for him to go and return home. He would wait for them tomorrow. A couple days passed. Everything was calm and quiet in Yang Kai's hut. Yang Kai practiced body tempering as before. He sat in the lotus posture and meditated. Around Kai, a magical energy that looked like tongues of blue-violet flames was spreading. A second later, Yang Kai abruptly opened his eyes. He felt something strange. The guy had finally made progress. He had advanced to the 7th stage of body hardening and would soon be able to start learning martial techniques in earnest. Yang Kai remembered that on the 4th page in the black book was a description of martial arts. Yang Kai hurriedly returned to the hut to open the book and read the necessary information. As soon as Yang Kai approached the book, it hung in the air. Yang Kai opened the black book and quickly found the golden martial arts page. Yang Kai read a few techniques. This set of movements and techniques seemed quite peculiar to him. He had read about the Yang strengthening technique, a practice that is all about strengthening one's own energy. This technique is impermanent, and unlike the others, it does not have precise and consistent actions, but it had fundamentals that are always unchanged. The essence of this technique is that one should train together with excess Yang energy, which will turn into liquid and collect in the Dantian. However, if the energy of liquid Yang overflows, there is a possibility of damaging one's meridians, but at the same time, one can increase the effectiveness of one's attacks during battle. After a couple of days, Yang Kai decided to practice this new technique he had read about recently. Yang Kai was trying very hard. He was having a hard time with the Yang strengthening technique. Even though the guy had been practicing under the open sun all day, his Yang energy had only increased slightly, but he had no other source of energy. Yang Kai had finally completed the 1st stage of forming the true source of Yang Qi. The true source of Yang Qi is in synergy with the energy of Yang Kai. However, the guy didn't understand why on earth he couldn't feel this energy. Yang Kai thought about this problem. An idea came to him. Yang Kai, after reflection, came to a great career. He became the very edge. This was the prison of the wriggling dragon. This gorge is full of Yang energy. This place was forbidden, and in the entire heavenly pavilion, it is blown by strong winds, and disciples were sent here for misdemeanors. Kai had no doubt that the intensity of Yan's energy in this place was simply beyond imaginable. The guy sat down in lotus pose and started practicing the new technique. He felt a pleasant sensation of warmth in his body. Unexpectedly for Yang Kai, an old man in the form of a heavenly pavilion walked up to him from behind. Yang Kai was very surprised to see such an esteemed person in such a place. Yang Kai thought that the old man must have a high status. He bowed and greeted the elder. The elder was also surprised by the young man's presence. The man had gray hair and a long beard. Yang Kai said that he didn't know how to address an elder. The old man replied that Yang Kai could call him the 11th elder. Yang Kai didn't recall having an 11th elder in their pavilion. However, the guy still greeted him. The elder asked if Yang Kai practiced martial arts. The guy replied that he did. The elder asked if Yang's energy concentration was based on Yang. Yang Kai said that was correct as well. The guy thought that the elder understood as soon as he felt the strong energy in this place. Yang Kai said that he had something he didn't understand. The guy was going to ask the elder about it. Yang Kai asked why there was such a large amount of Yang energy in this place. The elder replied that the answer was deep within those cracks, a treasure emitting Yang energy. Yang Kai thought it was obvious, however, he did not know of any treasures. The elder asked if the boy knew how the wriggling dragon's prison was set up. He replied that it was the prison that came from the sword strike. Yang Kai was very surprised. The crack in the ground was more than 100 feet wide. Yang Kai had no idea that it came from cutting the ball. The elder continued his story that hundreds of years ago, there was still no heavenly pavilion at this place. When the founder of the heavenly pavilion crossed these lands, he encountered a powerful demon. In the harsh battle, the demon was forced to flee, shredding the ground with his sword, thus organizing a path of retreat. And so began the chase through this gorge, the founder of the heavenly pavilion chasing after the demon. The founder was still able to overpower the demon. His power was unimaginable. Though he is now dead, no one can say for sure that there is no second one like him in this world. and the founder decided to guard this rift where the demon's head remained for a while, founding a heavenly pavilion in the process. Darkness ruled the place, so there is no way for the sun's rays to reach the bottom, and the place became a prison for the worst students. Yang Kai asked if the elder had come to check on the place. The elder replied that that was not why he had come here at all. He wanted to find one person. The elder laughed and remarked that he had become old, but that he still didn't dislike talking, and it was time for him to go. Yang Kai was very surprised at this unexpected encounter in this story. Yang Kai sat in the lotus posture and continued practicing. Since this is where the Yang treasure is located, Yang Kai sat near that gorge for a couple days. On the second day, the sun rose from behind the horizon. Yang Kai practiced everything diligently. He wasn't going to stop until he reached his goal. At this moment, Yang energy appeared around him. Yang Kai realized that he should push a little more. After a while, he felt this energy turn into a blob. This was the very first drop of liquid Yang that Yang Kai had been striving for. Even though it took a few days of sitting in the scorching sun, the guy read that it was worth it. Yang Kai stood up from the ground and considered that it was already time to return home. Toward evening, Yang Kai still came to his home, his little hut. The guy noticed his door was open, but he always closed it before leaving. Yang Kai entered the hut and saw a girl wearing purple clothes lying on his bed. The girl's face was illuminated by moonlight through a crack in the roof of the hut. The girl was sleeping peacefully on Kai's bed, looking like she was very tired from the day. Yang Kai watched her through the small slit in the door. He was surprised by the stranger. Yang Kai, realizing that there was no danger lurking in his house, went in and stood beside the bed. The guy thought it might be one of the students, and the hole in the roof he still hadn't repaired today was only proving to be a good thing. Hearing rustling around, the girl slowly opened her eyes. Seeing Kai, the girl jumped up from the bed and became embarrassed. The two looked at each other in silence for a while longer, hesitating to say anything. Yang Kai decided to interrupt this silence. He coughed and asked how he could address the girl. After a second, however, the guy realized that maybe he had asked the wrong question. The girl replied that her name was Xia. Yang Kai asked how he could help her. Xia replied that today a hunter from the Black Wind Mountain Range was looking for Kai. He waited all day, but the guy never came. This hunter wanted to thank the guy for his kindness and help. Yang Kai immediately realized that it was Zhang Shan. Xia handed the guy a bag. Yang Kai thanked her. Xia explained that she was entrusted to give it to Yang Kai, but she waited for him for a long time and dozed off a bit. Yang Kai said that next time it wouldn't happen again and he wouldn't cause any more trouble. Xia said that she had already completed her task, so she could go now. In a second, the girl was gone, as if she had vanished into thin air. Yang Kai thought Xia was too shy. He was going to see what was in the bag. There were 2 handmade suits in there. The guy thought that Zhang Shan's wife had tried her best. Yang Kai was flattered by such kindness from his acquaintances. He enjoyed the gifts. On that good note, Yang Kai decided to take a nap after measuring 2 days. The next morning came. The weather outside was perfect. The sun was already shining high in the sky. Yang Kai was sleeping soundly on his bed as suddenly someone knocked on his door. The knocking kept going on. Yang Kai had to get out of bed to see who was there. Yang Kai rubbed his eyes and opened the door. However, the person who knocked quickly turned around and ran away. It was Li Yuntian. Yang Kai saw that he had left a letter for him on the ground. This letter said that they hoped that Yang Kai could come to the thicket of the Black Wind Forest to talk. The letter was written by Su Mu. Yang Kai saw in the bottom left corner that it was a challenge to him. Yang Kai realized that there was definitely an ambush waiting for him in the forest. However, he wanted to test the effects of developing the Yang strengthening technique. Li Yuntian returned to his friends. Su Mu asked if everything was okay and if he had delivered the letter. Su Mu was out of breath, so he was in a hurry to get back. The guy replied that it was fine. Su Mu was going to wait until Yang Kai showed up, however. His friends saw that they had guests. The men from the Thunder Domain were approaching the boys. They were strong, formidable men. Su Mu knew one of them. His name was Chung Sharfen. Su Mu seemed scared. Li Yuntian motioned for these people to stand aside. Su Mu had known Chung Xiaofeng for a long time, and they had had many clashes over the years. Su Mu found this suggestion humiliating. He was serious, but the Thunder Domain had more people. There was no need to provoke them. One of these people asked Chung Xiaofeng if it was the same Su Mu and offered to see the guy here and now. The people from the Thunder Domain all crowded towards Su Mu, who stood motionless in their way. Chung Xiaofeng asked who it was standing in their way. He was surprised that Su Mu dared to do so. Chung Xiaofeng pretended that he had not seen who it was standing before, but only now did he discern Su Mu. That figure turned away. There was a girl standing next to Chung Xiaofeng. She said that it seems like these guys are not behaving respectfully. Su Mu was angry because of these words and rushed to see who had said them. This girl's name was Hu Mei. She had pink hair and big blue eyes. Su Mu immediately became embarrassed as soon as he saw the girl. He seemed to like her. Su Mu asked, isn't he there a free space around him to pass? Chung Xiaofeng didn't like such boldness from the young man, telling him to go away. Sumu was not going to back down. He asked what would happen if he didn't leave. Hu Mei said that there was nothing wrong with them here, and Sumu did not want to provoke Sen Xiaofeng, much less humiliate him. Sumu understood very well that Hu Mei was trying to ignite a spark. He knew that it was truly poisonous. Cheng Xiaofeng once again told Sumu to roll away from there, or else he would regret it. Cheng Xiaofeng couldn't give a slack in front of Hu Mei. He seemed to like her as well. Sumu still confidently stood his ground. He advised his opponent not to be too arrogant. These words made Cheng Xiaofeng very angry. He asked if Sumu was looking for death. Looks like their battle was inevitable. Sumu told Cheng Xiaofeng to begin it. The two guys started to fight. Cheng Xiaofeng landed a punch with his fist, however Sumu blocked it with his palm. Cheng Xiaofeng's punch was quite strong. Sumu jumped back a few meters away from him. Sumu was surprised at such strength of his opponent. He wondered if the latter had reached the Kaya Yuan stage. Cheng Xiaofeng said that he and Sumu started practicing on the same day, and his opponent's recent progress was ridiculous. Cheng Gaofeng once again struck Sumu. The latter was already finding it much harder to defend himself. At this time, Yang Kai was walking along the forest path. He was about to fulfill the requirements of the letter. At one point, the guy heard strange sounds. He realized that someone was fighting nearby. Walking a little more, Yang Kai saw Cheng Xiaofeng beating up Sumu in the forest clearing. Cheng Xiaofeng acted very violently. Sumu's blood was flying everywhere around. However, Sumu was not going to admit defeat. He spat in his opponent's face. Sumu was already all beaten up, however. He laughed and asked if this was all Cheng Xiaofeng was capable of. Yang Kai watched this picture. Sumu reminded him of the same. The guy also did not want to give up. Yang Kai noted Sumu's resilience and willpower. Despite such a beating, the guy still held on. Hu Mei noticed that Sumu was very resilient. She liked it. She asked Cheng Xiaofeng to keep him. This was obviously a provocation towards Cheng Xiaofeng. He said that he was also comfortable with it. Cheng Xiaofeng picked up a stone that was lying nearby from the ground. The situation was getting more and more heated. Sumu stated that if his opponent didn't kill him today, he might not be able to hope for a sweet life. Cheng Xiaofeng thought it was all empty threats. He swung this stone and wanted to hit his opponent on the head. Li Yuntian was also lying all beaten up. He screamed and was scared for Sumu. Hu Mei herself didn't expect the situation to become so heated. At this time, Cheng Xiaofeng's stone hand had already almost reached Sumu's face. However, to everyone's surprise, someone put their hand in front of the stone. Li Yuntan was very surprised that the situation didn't end up killing Sumu. The one who came to Sumu's rescue turned out to be Yang Kai. He was holding a stone in his hand. Cheng Xiaofeng was surprised that another Heavenly Pavilion disciple had approached them. However, Cheng Xiaofeng was not scared in the slightest. He believed that one more was one less. All the men of the Thunder Domain ran to attack Kai. They told him to get ready. Yang Kai wasn't the least bit scared either. He put in a little effort and broke the stone with his fist. Yang Kai launched small shards of stone into the faces of his opponents. They hit the target accurately. One of the guys couldn't see anything else. He was disarmed. The other guys took a swing at Kai. However, Yang Kai was faster. He punched one of them in the face with his fist. The blow came straight to the man's diarrhea and he screamed loudly and grabbed his face. The man then curled up on the ground and screamed in pain. Hu Mei noticed that Yang Kai was using life force to fight. The girl saw an aura of golden energy around him. However, Yang Kai was not that strong. Some punches still hit him. One of the guys hit him in the stomach. But despite that, Yang Kai managed to throw him off with Sumu watching it all. Sumu didn't understand why Yang Kai was saving his life since they can't stand each other. Cheng Xiaofeng was surprised by Yang Kai's strength. He didn't realize who he was. Hu Mei gave a sly laugh. She was interested in the new character on the battlefield. Cheng Xiaofeng stated that Yang Kai didn't have very outstanding abilities. Cheng Xiaofeng said that Yang Kai had gotten himself into trouble and told him not to blame him. The guy drew his sword from its sheath. Cheng Xiaofeng ran to attack the unarmed Yang Kai with his sword. Sumu shouted to Yang Kai to be careful, for his opponent had already reached the Kai Yuan stage. However, it was already too late to turn back. Cheng Xiaofeng's blade was a few centimeters away from Kai's body. The blade of the ball pierced through Yang Kai's hand. Blood spurted out from his palm. The entire battle was closely watched by Hu Mei. She was very surprised by Yang Kai's abilities. However, it was Kai's plan. He smiled and was going to do something about it. Yang Kai slipped his hand further towards the ball handle. This must be insanely painful. Securing his opponent's weapon, Yang Kai swung with his other hand. Yang Kai punched Cheng Xiaofeng's face with his fist, so hard that a tooth was knocked out. Cheng Xiaofeng fell to his knees. He grabbed his face, which was hurting terribly. Yang Kai wasn't going to leave it like this. He needed to finish off his opponent, which he did with his foot. At this moment, Yang Kai noticed that Hu Mei was watching them. Now it was her turn. Yang Kai grabbed the girl's throat with her bloody hand and squeezed it hard. Hu Mei explained that she was not with them, but from the Purple Clan, and had never raised her hands on the Heavenly Tower disciples. Hu-mei took Kai's hand and started praising him, saying that he was strong. The girl licked his bloody finger and asked if he was also strong in more than just fighting. However, such tricks couldn't work on Kai. He clamped down even harder on the girl's neck. Hu-mei asked if Yang Kai still doubted her words. A second later, Hu-mei grabbed Yang Kai's hand and lowered it to her chest. The boy was shocked. It was just another reception of the girl. She asked if Yang Kai wanted anything from her. The guy realized that the girl really hadn't done anything to the Heavenly Pavilion disciples, but he still wanted to teach her a lesson. Hu-mei expected that Yang Kai would feel awkward in such a situation. However, it was not like that. The guy squeezed the girl's chest. Hu-mei immediately became embarrassed and jumped away from Yang Kai. She didn't expect such a thing. Yang Kai, seeing the girl's reaction, laughed loudly. He had achieved his goal. The guy turned around and said goodbye to Hu-mei. He had finished straightening out his opponents. The guys were still staying in the Black Wind Forest to deal with the situation. Hu-mei was very confused by Kai's behavior. She wasn't sure if the guy was in his right mind. The girl could capture any guy's heart, however. Yang Kai actually ignored her beauty. At this moment, Yang Kai was about to leave, however. Someone placed a hand on his shoulder and stopped the guy. It was Hu-mei. She got close to Kai's face and said that he was interesting. After that, the girl spontaneously turned around and walked away, leaving Kai to ponder what had happened. Yang Kai walked over to his opponent lying on the ground and ripped off a piece of cloth, wrapping it around her wounded arm. Yang Kai asked Sumu if he could walk. The latter was obviously crippled. However, Sumu confidently stated that he was capable of walking himself. The boys returned to the Sky Pavilion. It was not easy for them to do so. In these neighborhoods, clashes between students aren't that uncommon. It looked like everyone was used to it by now, and no one was surprised by such an event. Unless a fight ends in death or serious injury, the elders almost always turn a blind eye. After taking the injured away, Yang Kai returned to his small wooden hut. The guy specifically tried to protect his bones and meridians, because if he got seriously injured, medicinal herbs would cost him money. And the effect-enhancing Yang techniques allows the guy to repair non-serious injuries. Yang Kai used this technique. He abruptly opened his eyes and realized something. At this moment, Yang Kai had advanced to the 8th stage of body hardening. Today's battle had done him good. Yang Kai noticed that the absorption rate of Yang energy had increased significantly. A couple days later, Yang Kai was sweeping the yard with his broom as before. Over the past couple days, Sumu had hardly shown his face in public. Yang Kai thought that he was still recovering. As soon as the guy thought of Sumu, he immediately appeared in front of him. Yang Kai greeted Sumu and asked how he was feeling. Sumu seemed to ignore this question and asked Li Yuntian to give him something. Li Yuntian held out a small pouch to Sumu, but it was quite heavy. Sumu unwrapped the bag. There were 2 bottles. Yang Kai didn't understand what they were. The guy wondered what Sumu had brought him. He was expecting a catch. Sumu handed Yang Kai one of the bottles and said that it was his. It turns out these bottles contained alcohol. Sumu kept one for himself and offered to drink it. Sumu happily knocked over one of the bottles. It looked like the guy was very happy. Yang Kai also followed suit. He drank the contents. Everyone was in an elevated mood. At that moment, someone approached the boys. He interrupted their fun. It was one of the men of the Heavenly Pavilion. He stated that drinking alcohol in public is strictly an offense. This guy was going to deduct 5 points from each of the guys, but they wouldn't get off that easy next time. Yang Kai didn't take his words seriously and laughed at him. The guy with glasses was very surprised. Sumu told Brother Hu to help Yang Kai sweep the yard. He agreed. Yang Kai was surprised by this attitude. He said he shouldn't do it. Sumu stated that the cleanup could wait and suggested that Yang Kai go with him and talk. The guys came to a lake nearby. Sumu asked why Yang Kai had saved him back then. Yang Kai thought for a while. He didn't know what to answer. Yang Kai replied that Sumu had called him brother, and therefore he should have acted as befitting a brother. Sumu was very surprised because of such a strange reason. Yang Kai asked what was wrong. Sumu stated that if that was Kai's reason, then they would be younger brothers to him. He felt that they should forget the old ones. Yang Kai was in agreement with Sumu. After all, what was past was past. The guys laughed out loud. They seemed to find common ground and even became friends. Sumu wanted to ask something else. He blushed and asked if they had touched that day. Yang Kai didn't understand what the guy was talking about. He asked what he was touching. Sumu asked about Meihu Air. Sumu liked the girl. He couldn't wait to hear all the details from Kai. Yang Kai replied that she herself leaned on his arm and he just wanted to teach her a lesson. However, Sumu was not interested in that. He asked what Kai's feelings were. Yang Kai was a little surprised. He asked if Sumu had never experienced something like this. Yang Kai smugly thought that Sumu was innocence itself. Sumu was surprised. He asked if Yang Kai had experienced something more. Yang Kai decided not to continue talking about it. Sumu's subordinates worked up a sweat and helped fix Kai's house. They caulked its roof. Sumu warned that he better be wary. Hu-mei is very proud, and if a guy pushed her away, she will not let it go. Yang Kai didn't understand the girl's behavior. He asked if she needed something of him. Sumu explained that she wants young Kai. She will try everything to seduce him, and until she gets what she wants, she will not give up. Young Kai explained that he has nothing but disgust for these types of women. Sumu also wanted to thank Kai. He reached into his inner pocket and was about to take something out. The guy took out a vial that contained pellets. They could help heal Kai's wounds and restore ki. Young Kai took Sumu's gift. He had heard of this medicine before. Even though his efficiency isn't very high, it turns out that they will be useful for Kai, since he has already reached the 7th stage of tempering. Also, if his energy gets depleted, the guy can use drops of liquid yang. Sumu stated that he doesn't like to stay in debt. Yang Kai replied that he would accept this gift. The guy smiled. Sumu would like to show Yang Kai one place if he's free right now. Kai was interested in the offer and asked what the place was. Sumu kept the intrigue, however. He was sure that Kai would definitely not be disappointed by it. The next day, the guys went to the Black Wind Forest. Yang Kai didn't understand why Sumu had brought him there. Sumu asked if Yang Kai knew why they had stumbled upon Cheng Xiaofeng and his minions near the Black Wind Forest back then. Yang Kai speculated that Cheng Xiaofeng might have some business here. Sumu said that the Heavenly Tower, Thunder House, and Crimson Clan are not that far apart, and the distance to this forest is about the same for all three. Yang Kai didn't understand what all these disciples in this forest were interested in. There was an underground market. Students from all 3 schools flocked here. They could fetch gold or silver even for their skills or information. Li Yuntian remembered that last time. Sumu had purchased some Qianyuan fruits here for pennies. Yang Kai had never heard of such a plant before. He asked what it was. It turned out to be a rare fruit growing in the ground. The seller was clueless, so he charged a ridiculous price. Yang Kai asked if there were any 11th step elders in their pavilion. Li Yuntian laughed and said that there were only 5 mentors in their pavilion, and every single one of them was below the 11th step. Sumu remembered that his father had once said that the pavilion head was now at the peak of development. He had reached the highest stage of Shen Yu. Meanwhile, the boys were walking through the woods and talking about everything in the world. Yang Kai was interested in learning new things about their clan. He kept asking the guys about it. Yang Kai listened to the stories about the head of the Heavenly Pavilion and came to the conclusion that he was amazing. The initial stages of body hardening are followed by higher levels of development. They were Yang Kai Yuan, Qidong, Li He, Zhen Yuan, and Shen Yu. Each stage is divided into 9 sublevels, and each successive breakthrough will become increasingly difficult. There were very few Shan Yu stage masters in this world. That was why everyone in the Heavenly Pavilion was surprised that the head was so strong. Sumu revealed that the patriarch of the Purple Clan Hu Man and the patriarch of the Thunderous House Xiao Do were now at the 6th or 7th step of Shen Yu. Li Yuntian asked when their head could make a breakthrough, because if he could rise a notch higher, then no one would dare to provoke them. Yang Kai thought about it. He was admired by such capable people. Li Yuntian noticed that Sumu slowed down his step. He asked what was wrong. Sumu's father said that it had been about 10 years since the head had reached the Shen Yu stage. Sumu wasn't quite sure why the head still hadn't broken through higher since then. Li Yuntian stated that it was cruel after all. He was only playing up their interest. The guys wanted to hear more. Sumu asked a promise to keep it between them. The thing is that because of one incident, their head is unable to move to the next stage. Young Kai didn't know such details of the chapter's life. He was curious to hear it. The head had no wife or children, so he adopted 2 of his students. Both brothers were quite intelligent and talented. They both excelled in school. Their strength became more and more powerful, and one was not inferior to the other. It was because of their very different personalities. The older brother was always praised, but the younger brother was treated much more strictly. After that, the younger brother began to distance himself from the older brother in an attempt to gain quick strength. Because of this, the younger brother developed a theme in his heart and resentment. Eventually, he learned a forbidden technique that would horrify any master. The guys were very surprised. They were eager to learn more about the forbidden technique. All the guys fell silent. They didn't know what to say and were mulling over the story. The boys looked over at each other. They were a little intimidated by the intimidating secret technique. Young Kai also pondered. It seemed to him that what Sumu said must be true. After this brother learned the way, the junior disciple's character completely changed, and his power increased. However, it was dark magic and the evil inside wasn't going anywhere. Now that he possessed such immense strength, he hoped to earn the praise of the head. However, a battle took place and the eldest pupil was killed while his named brother was able to escape punishment. Sumu no longer wanted to tell further, but the guys demanded it and asked what happened next. From that very night, this brother spent long days in complete seclusion. Many thought he was finally broken. However, all these people couldn't imagine that in just a few days, the head himself would go after his second disciple and imprison him in the evolving dragon stream. Young Kai remembered that conversation with the elder, how he said he had some things to do. Young Kai thought that that old man had come to visit the one who was sealed. Young Kai understood everything. He realized who that elder was. Sumu added that because of all these misfortunes, the chapter was so unable to overcome the bottleneck and break through to the top, because if you can't understand your heart, you'll lose yourself. The guys are sorry for the way things turned out. Young Kai was amazed after hearing this story. Meanwhile, they were already approaching their destination. The guys just happened to come to this underground market. It was very lively. There were stalls with completely different goods everywhere. One of them had gold utensils on it, but the second time the knives were arranged in rows. Sumu stated that they were on the spot. Yang Kai liked this underground market. Sumu added that there was no need to worry about security in this place, with people from each sect standing out. Sumu pointed to a wooden hut and said that a caretaker from their sect, now Sumu's older sister, lived there. Yang Kai interjected about Sumu's older sister. He was a little surprised to hear this. Sumu had already thought something wrong. He immediately warned Kai not to make any plans for his sister. Sumu thought that he shouldn't worry about it. Yang Kai asked if his sister was strong. Sister Sumu was at the third step of Genyuan. Of all the disciples of the 3 schools, only a few would be able to match her in strength. It was very unusual for a disciple from her generation to be at the next step, because the next step is the one where the head is at. Yang Kai doesn't understand why Sumu is still at such a low level. Sumu did not expect such a direct question. It seems Yang Kai had hit his sore spot. The guy revealed that he hasn't had much luck, but he's going to increase his training, and eventually he can't let Yang Kai surpass him. It seemed to Yang Kai that Sumu was not very good at martial arts, just like he had been a while ago. Sumu invited Kai to meet his older sister, because under her patronage it would be easier for them to do things. Yang Kai asked Ling Yuntian what Sumu's sister's name was. The latter said Su-yan. Meanwhile, they approached the place where Su-yan was on duty. It was a small building. Apparently, this is where the residence of the Heavenly Pavilion is located. Yang Kai noticed that Sumu was a little worried before entering. The guy squeezed his eyes shut. After which, Sumu, dousing himself in sweat, walked towards the main entrance of the residence. The guy knocked on the door and said it was Sumu. Yang Kai found his excitement funny. He laughed. Sumu heard people laughing at him. The guy got a little angry and turned to the guys. At this moment, a female voice was heard, allowing Sumu to enter. Sumu was also still anxious and gingerly opened the main door of the residence. After that, the guy took a step inside. He was stepping very uncertainly. Yang Kai noticed that the air in this room was heavier than usual. Perhaps it was some kind of technique. Yang Kai was a little wary. He became uneasy and became anxious as well. At this moment, Yang Kai heard a bang. It was very abrupt and unexpected. It turned out that Su-yan had hit her brother so hard that he had a bump on his head. That was when Yang Kai saw Su-yan for the first time. He was very surprised and didn't expect such a thing. The girl was very young and beautiful. She wore a white and long cape. Her hair was very dark. Su-yan menacingly asked if Sumu knew why she had just hit him. Sumu guiltily replied that he knew everything. The guy understood everything perfectly. After that, Su-yan turned her attention to Yang Kai, who had just entered. The guy felt uncomfortable with the girl's gaze. Su-yan punished her brother for being beaten up. She asked why Sumu let it happen. Sumu replied that it was because he hadn't practiced much. Su-yan realized that at least her brother was not hopeless. Sumu replied that he knew what he should do to become stronger. Su-yan said that the next time her brother decided to play around the neighborhood, no one else should beat him up. Sumu tried to show his confidence. He promised not to disappoint his sister again. Su-yan asked Kai if he was the one who beat up Chung Xiaofeng. Yang Kai was surprised that the girl was pretty well informed, even though she spent dozens of hours in closed-door training. Yang Kai replied that she was. Su-yan had one good piece of advice for Kai that she wanted to voice to him. Yang Kai asked Su-yan to tell him. After all, it was clearly something worthwhile. The girl advised him to stay away from Sumu, or else Yang Kai's development would slow down thoroughly and he would remain at this stage. Su-yan said whatever she was going to say. She told the guys to leave. She would be in charge of practicing. The boys didn't dare to cross her. They walked out, slamming the door of the residence. Li Yuntian was going to look for the recovery pellets that everyone was talking about a couple days ago. Sumu was left alone with Kai. He revealed that his sister was kinder than she might seem. Yang Kai thought that she was her and Sumu was Sumu and had his own way. Sumu thanked Kai for his kind words. He had some things to do. He said goodbye to the guy. Yang Kai also decided to walk through this market, looking for some interesting things. The underground market had many stalls with a variety of goods, all trying to sell something. Some stalls here are not just for buying and selling. There are also stalls with alchemy materials, pills, and so on. It was hard to pass by when Yang Kai saw interesting plaques with alchemy, for example. Guy felt that he should pay special attention to pills and herbs containing yang energy. However, the prices there were exorbitant, one recovery pellet costing approximately 52 liang. Sumu gave the guy bottles of such pellets. There were 10 of them, which meant that a bottle would cost him 500 yuan. At this moment, Hu Mei-er walked up to the guy from behind, appearing so unexpectedly. Yang Kai wasn't happy to see her. He asked what the girl needed and why she came. Hu Mei replied that she didn't need anything like that. She just wanted to come over and say hello. In that case, Yang Kai decided that he could leave. Hu Mei was very upset by this guy's insolent attitude. Hu Mei wasn't going to budge from Yang Kai. She followed him with her tail. After a while, the guy got fed up with it. Yang Kai asked why the girl was following him. Hu Mei replied that she was not stalking at all, but merely wandering around the market by herself. Yang Kai got angry and said that if the girl followed him further, she shouldn't expect leniency from him. Hu Mei asked if the guy would punish her like last time. Yang Kai didn't care about these problems at all. He needed to find what he came for. At this moment, in a nearby counter, Yang Kai saw glowing pebbles. The salesman asked if he was interested in the products. He also added that he always has adequate prices and good quality. Yang Kai asked how much one of the stones cost. The seller told him that the light-colored yan stone cost 500 liang per piece. Yang Kai replied that it was too much. However, in reality, the guy thought the price was pretty fair. The vendor stated that his prices were already lower than anywhere else, and if Yang Kai didn't believe him, he could go to other shops and check. Yang Kai was saddened as he realized that this was most likely true. Yang Kai tried to bargain with the seller, but the man told him that the items did not belong to him. He was only helping to sell them. Yang Kai was surprised that this shop didn't belong to him. He wondered who the owner was. Yang Kai realized that almost everyone in the vicinity of this place was from the Purple Clan. Hu Mei stated that this shop belongs to her family. She asked if the guy wants these stones. The girl was willing to give Yang Kai 10 such stones if he fulfilled one condition. The salesman was not thrilled with the suggestion, but she reassured him and was going to tell her father herself. Hu Mei insisted that Yang Kai promise to fulfill one wish of hers. However, the guy realized this was another ploy. He wasn't going to do it. Hu Mei got angry and told the seller to sell this stone cheaper. Yang Kai replied that he didn't need it. He asked to sell it for 500 liang. Yang Kai wanted to exchange this stone for the pills that Sumu had given him earlier. The seller looked at the pellets and agreed. Yang Kai explained that there were 10 pellets, which was about 500 liang. The transaction took place, and Hu Mei was very angry that things didn't go according to her plan. The seller also gave Yang Kai the grain. Still, he can't sell it at a decent price. This is the seed of a rare fruit, rather than digging it up when looking for light yang stones. It grows deep in the ground. Yang Kai had never heard of such a grain, but since the man was giving it away for free, he decided to take it. Yang Kai thanked the man, and Hu Mei wasn't going to just let the guy go and followed him. Yang Kai thought that he needed to find a way to get rid of Hu Mei. After all, he might be misunderstood. Hu Mei's reputation wasn't very good. The guy thought it might be worth going into the thicket of the forest to scare her. Hu Mei herself didn't realize where they were going. She was already a little wary of this forest. The girl realized that most likely Yang Kai was just trying to scare her to get her off her back. Yang Kai didn't expect the girl to be so courageous that she wasn't afraid to go with him to an unfamiliar, deserted place. In the thicket of the forest, 2 more people not from their clan were watching the boys. It turns out it was Cheng Xiaofeng, who had been beaten up by Yang Kai earlier, who was out for revenge. His older brother was with him. He asked if the guy had been beaten by those people. Yang Kai seemed dead to him. Cheng Xiaofeng explained that he was inattentive back then. Besides, Yang Kai was quite strange. He told about the incident with his hand. Cheng Xiaofeng's brother knew that there were only 10 people on probation in the Heavenly Tower, and apparently Yang Kai was one of them. Cheng Xiaofeng was afraid that they would run into someone stranger in the forest, however. It was as if Yang Kai went into the thicket of the forest on purpose. The 2 brothers decide to deal with Kai together, teaching him a lesson. The older brother suggested going on the attack. After all, there was no time to waste. Hu Mei was clinging to Yang Kai. She asked him to just walk with her once. Hu Mei came across as complimentary. She asked if she was beautiful and if her body was perfect. Yang Kai replied that in a woman he appreciates her inner qualities. The girl was beautiful, however, inside, and she had nothing to look at. Hu Mei asked if Yang Kai thought she was that disgusting. Hu Mei started to get angry and said that there were many men dreaming of her, and if she wanted to, Yang Kai wouldn't be able to meet the dawn. Yang Kai asked, if he killed the girl here and now, how could she complain to her father? Hu Mei started to get a little worried. She asked if the guy was joking. He replied that his patience was not infinite. At this moment, Yang Kai heard strange sounds coming from nearby. He told those watching them to appear. It was those 2 brothers specifically. Sumu recognized the guy. She had goosebumps running down her body from fear. The guys stated that they only wanted to see Kai. They suggested that she move away from him. Elder brother believed that if Hu Mei hurt himself, it would be very bad. The girl knew that Nu Tao had recently reached the 5th step of Kai Yuan, and he was much stronger than his younger brother. There was nothing the girl could do to them, but they couldn't kill her either, and if Yang Kai agreed to her terms, she would help. Yang Kai said he shouldn't help him. It remains to be seen who will die and who will survive. Hu Mei turned around and was about to leave. She wished Yang Kai good luck. Well, Tao knew the girl was very submissive and wouldn't give them any trouble. Nu Tao said that there was nothing for Yang Kai to meddle in other people's affairs. He asked if Yang Kai should kill himself or do him a favor. Yang Kai stated that if the brothers want his life, let them try to take it themselves. Yang Kai paused for a second. He began to utilize the Yan energy. A huge stream of energy flowed along his meridian, the Yan Qi energy pulsing strongly. Just a little more. Yang Kai's meridians might have exploded from this energy. The Yan liquid in his body was getting more and more. He could feel this power, but he didn't understand why the Yan Qi was arriving so strongly. After a second, Yang Kai remembered something. This was all happening because of the Yan Lightstone. Well, Tao told his little brother to follow him. The brothers 5 rushed to the attack. They were confident in their abilities and in defeating Kai. Well, Tao swung his fist at Kai. The guy saw it coming. Yang Kai collided his fists with Nu Tao. In the blink of an eye, blood rushed from such a blow. It looks like Nu Tao hurt his arm. It was hurting, followed by Cheng Xiaofeng attacking. The guy yelled that he had seen this kind of trick before and wouldn't fall for the same trick twice. Cheng Xiaofeng swung his sword, however. Yang Kai put out his hand right in front of him. Yang Kai grabbed the sword with his injured hand. Cheng Xiaofeng doesn't understand how he managed it. The guy called for his brother's help, however. The latter only shouted for Cheng Xiaofeng to be careful. Yang Kai concentrated all her energy into 2 fingers and touched Cheng Xiaofeng's flask. The latter fell unconscious.